At this time, we're going to move on to presentations, introductions, and recognitions. Tonight, we have a presentation from the Morongo Unified School District. They'll be providing an update, and that's Dr. Vargas. He is our superintendent of the Morongo Basin Unified School District.
Good afternoon, good evening. Mayor Dennison, City Council members, it's great to be here. I did speak to Curtis, Mr. Yakino, and he said, we will invite you once you find your way through Highway 62. So it took me a year, but now I find my way through it. So thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here and to provide you with a little bit of an idea of the master plan we have for the district. It's been a year of a listening campaign, a year of conversations with different stakeholders, with different groups, to come up with a vision and a master plan that is going to have everybody together. And that's part of that will be you. So the very first thing, Morongo Unified School District, the new motto that we have is our students, our community, our future. And we have to embrace that as something that we must do, not for the future that we think they should have, but the future of our community. And that's what we embrace, everybody, in this conversation. And there's two big pillars that we're going to focus on throughout these years, which is one, socio-emotional support, which is needed, for our students. And the next one is academic rigor and relevance. So both pillars are going to be the ones sustaining the future in our district. But let me share a little bit of the accomplishments we have had this past school year. So let me start with this.
As we get ready to kick off the new school year, let's first take a moment to look back at our many accomplishments from the 2022 school year. Last year, 12 of our schools were recognized by receiving PBIS awards, including 5 platinum schools. 4 of our schools received Purple Star School designation, a program that seeks to reduce the burden on military-connected students and their families. Black Rock High School was designated as a model school by the California Department of Education. The program identifies and recognizes outstanding continuation high schools. Our very own Wayne Hamilton, homeless liaison, received the Children's Deserve Success Award from the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. And during the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools' 36th Annual Multilingual Recognition Award Ceremony, 5 of our district employees were recognized for their continued work with English learners. 2022 was an amazing year, as our students were also putting Morongo USD on the map. Yucca Valley High School student Nala Voss received the Boys and Girls Club Youth Volunteer of the Year Award. Oasis Elementary 6th grader Layla Rogers won the art competition through the California School Nutrition Association. Layla was one of 3 winners in California in her grade category. La Quintana Middle School 8th grade students recently walked away with a first place finish and a $3,000 check for their school in the Mojave Water Agency's Curiosity Quest. And our 29 Palms Junior High School STEAM Cats 2 robotics team completed a successful season by winning the Desert Middle School Vex Robotics League Tournament, then traveling to compete in the Create US Open Middle School Robotics Championship in Iowa, finishing the season ranking 5th in the nation and 2nd in California. Our schools also made it a priority to partner with organizations throughout the community to better serve our students and provide them with experiences that would enhance their education. We're able to experience Joshua Tree National Park through visits to locations throughout the park guided by park staff. Groundwork Arts guided hundreds of our students through projects that gave our students the opportunity to express themselves through art, including art exhibits in the community. Mojave Desert Land Trust helped our students learn about the conservation of our precious desert lands and animals as they guided students through trips on their preserved land. And Spark Growth worked to inspire our children to become passionate readers and writers through their in-classroom programs. Without the dedication of these organizations and many others in our community, student opportunities for additional growth would be limited. Through these partnerships, our students thrive. 2022 was a wonderful year of growth for our students, our district, and our community.
So as you can see, 22-23 school year was a great year, a lot of accomplishments. But we have much to do, and we have a big road ahead of us. So one of the big things that I have done is work with the school board to delineate the pathway we're going to take to do that. So I want to just show you, highlight, how we're providing focus, alignment, and coherence to this process. So the very first thing is highlighting the role of the school board, which is designing and defining what the master plan is and working with policy, the policy that we need in order to get to the next step in our pathway. Now, the next step, as the school board defines that, it goes to the district leadership, which LCAP goals is the local control accountability plan, the goals and objectives that they have and the programs that they defines in their sites. From then goes to the SIPSA goals, which is the school plan for accountability, and this one is led by the site leadership and the practices at each school, which translate into the instructional task, teachers, the students, and the instruction that they have on a daily basis. So, the master plan has 4 different components, and I'm going to discuss these briefly so that you can see the overall picture. The first one is outstanding academic achievement, student well-being, number 2, equity and access, number 3, and leadership and community relations, number 4. So the very first one, outstanding academic achievement. For this one, we have to take a look at the facts, district-wide and site-based, how we've done it, and what we can do to actually get our students to accomplish more. Then we have to facilitate a shared vision of learning. It's interesting, but our community has different cities that we serve, different communities that we serve, and somehow each community thinks that we're unique, and we work on our own. So to break those silos, we have to have a shared vision of learning. And was that me? There it goes. Shared vision of learning. And then we have to pick the right drivers through data analysis. Sometimes we think, the accountability is just to go and tell them, you must do this, you must do that, but it's more of a listening and understanding to know what the needs are. And sure, adequate progress in the California dashboard. The California dashboard is going to release the new test scores. And we have to know how we compare with other districts, with the county, and with the state, so that we can continue moving forward. And the last one, maximize the power of collaborative practices for student academic gains. This year, we initiated a new initiative which allows teachers to meet on a weekly basis for 90 minutes for collaboration. And we know this will be the driver to ensure student academic gains. The next one, we have the student well-being. As you know, the mental health support of our students is one of our priorities. And we're working on that piece to make sure that we understand how they feel and we understand the complexity of the situation in which they live. We need to offer targeted professional development with an emphasis on socio-emotional learning. So we provide this for our teachers, and we have done it during the summer, and we do it throughout the school year. The next one, support START to ensure psychological safety for all the students. It's interesting, but when we talk about these, our students, some of them do not feel psychologically safe to come to the classroom or to express themselves. So we're supporting our staff to make sure that they use these practices. And the last one, condition the school sites to maximize safety and security. We actually have ensured that every site is safe, secure, as far as the checking in and the windows, the tinted windows, we are trying to get, bulletproof windows so that all schools will be at a level of security for sites. The next one, equity and access. Require educational excellence with equity. Close the digital divide. We still have students that don't have access to computers at home, so we need to close that digital device. Enhance learning through innovation. Innovation is one of our driving factors, and we want to make sure that we do that. And the next one, encourage an inclusive and respectful environment, and provide equitable access to updated and modernized facilities. How many of you have had a chance to visit one of our sites lately? By show of hands. Okay, some of you. And when you see the sites, you actually see them from outside. They look pretty nice. But when you go in, they still need to be updated and they need to be modernized. And we see the need to actually make sure that our students have the classrooms that they deserve. The last one, leadership and community relations. This is when you come into place, because we need to establish and maintain a strong coalition of the communities represented in Morongo Basin. We need to increase the alignment and collaboration with all community represented groups and enhance the confidence and trust of staff members in the community. And last one is strengthen the district long-term financial position. By doing this, we can say we are poised to move on the next level with our district, put Morongo Basin on the map, and that's our goal. So let me share with you, some of the 4 pieces that we want to make sure that all of our sites and our community is with us in these 4 ideas. We need to have clarity of goals by objectives and strategies and work with that. The next one is shared leadership by highlighting key performance indicators for each academic subject and everything that we do at the district. A coherent system where we have milestones for measures for every school, not one school in Yucca, not one school in 29, not one school in Landers, but all the schools should have a coherent system where we all represent the same district. And the last one, summary of evaluations, cycles of inquiry, where we constantly are assessing our practices, what we do, and how we do it. So this is kind of like the overview of the Morongo USD Master Plan. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Thank you very much for the update. There's been a lot of things changing in our schools. The town has changed quite a bit over the years. Is there any questions from the council? Oh, I'm sorry. The public in here this evening, anyone have any questions for Dr. Vargas? Seeing none, anyone online? No, we'll bring it back to the council. Yes.
Go ahead. You go first.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Dr. Vargas. That was
You're welcome.
a lot of information in a short time, and I appreciate that. But a couple of things caught my attention here. The comparison with other districts, you alluded to that. Do you have like a report of how we compare to other districts now?
So the latest report from the state hasn't been released, the official one. So until we get that report, then I can provide with a pretty accurate comparison. Now, last year's comparison, it wasn't too good, which is why, that was one of the challenges that I took upon me to say, we have the potential to be much higher than where we are right now. So now we'll get the results this year, and I'm hoping we show some increase, and next year will be even more.
And the metrics on that are student achievement? Is that mostly what we're talking
Student
about?
achievement and student well-being, data and surveys that we have.
Okay, thank you. On safety and security, you were talking about that. Is there some sort of program for teacher support and training on that? Besides, I think you talked about the windows, but how are the teachers supported on that and trained?
So we're providing professional development for teachers, especially in middle school and high school. In middle school and high school, we're trying to support them to know how to respond to situations that escalate. And we're we're trying to target different staff members, especially the ones that are closer to the students that may escalate. So we're beginning with them. We have trained, some of the special ed teachers, staff, that support in the classroom. And now we're moving to the next step, administrators, support staff in the offices, and then teachers. So little by little, we want everybody to be trained to know how to react and what to do in those situations.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. Can you give me an example of the coalition with communities? You said you're working toward a strong coalition with the communities. What's taking place to make that happen?
So last year, I had the opportunity to meet with different representatives from the community on the Superintendent's Advisory Council. And I met once to provide them with an idea of what we're doing as a district and get the feedback. Curtis, attended that meeting where we get the feedback from the community to know what the needs are and what we can do together. This year, we're going to continue that process. We're going to have, a series of meetings throughout the year where we listen to the community, where we tag along to know what the needs are in the job market, what the needs are within the community, so that we can then in turn meet those needs in association with CMC.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for the report.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming here tonight, and I really enjoy your energy and the beautiful presentation. I'm very thrilled to see you're so organized and have a list of goals that you're pushing for. I really like the one that I see on page 6, I think it was slide 6, about objectives and strategies, and it ends up with summary evaluation and cycle of inquiry.
Yes.
I think it's important to look at what we're doing and make sure that we're on the right track. And how often do you go through the data that you collect to make adjustments to the programs or the way that you're trying to accomplish a particular item?
So this year, we're starting a monthly process where we
Monthly.
actually see, readjust, and reconvene with principals. Principals meet with the site leadership teams. They have organized their site teams so that they have a leadership team that meets with them. Then they organize the data, discuss it, and then meet the needs of the students. And we're providing a better perspective in regards to what the needs of the students are. Students come to us with different headwinds or tailwinds. And those students with headwinds are the ones that we need to target to say, what can we do for them? And data has demonstrated that those students with the most headwinds are usually the ones that fail. And for us as a district to know that we're failing the students with the most headwinds, that's on us. Because if we have that information and if we don't put in place together what we need to support those students, then we're failing the system. So we're having difficult conversations, interesting conversations, but everybody's kind of like taking a look and saying, what can we do as a system? And in working together, we've been able to show some strides. Support, and teachers are very excited as far as the collaboration that they're doing right now for exactly that purpose, meeting to address the needs of the students. And they're doing it at every level.
I'm happy to see that. That's really good. I'm a firm believer in the interaction between the high school students and the college, and I know that you've made some inroads there with talking with the college and their career technical pathway and that sort of thing. I hope to see those programs come to full flower, and I think our community will benefit from having a more clear pathway for students to go from high school into college, because we've not been very successful at getting our students to college and through college. So
Yes.
I think that education is a great way to improve your life, and I think that by making it more evident, pathways that they can pursue those things and actually facilitating, helping it, looking at how they're doing and helping them move along will be of great use to them.
Yes.
And the community.
Thank you.
What are you doing to encourage leadership among the students?
What am I doing to encourage
Like-
leadership?
How are you giving leadership roles or experience that helps develop students into leaders?
The organization takes place in regards to, sometimes, what we focus a lot is just on the management of the schools, how principals manage the schools, how teachers manage the schools. Now we're taking one step further and differentiating what leadership and management is, so that they know how to be managers, they know their day-to-day activities, but they know how to lead a school. And in leading those schools, they can provide the leadership within the site. We're actually right now partnering with an organization that is going to train our students to take leadership roles in community action, so that they actually take the initiative to a grassroots movement to say, how can we better Yucca Valley? What can we do for the community? But it has to be from the students. So we're initiating that partnership this year in order to move the students and provide their leadership.
The school district has always supported the youth commission that we've had here, and I think that's been a really good thing. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I do want to also, say, in regards to the partnership that we have, Captain Warwick, has been we're changing even the narrative with our sheriff's department, how they support us, how we work together so the community knows that too. So our narrative, has been changed as far as like what we're doing, how we're working together, and how we're becoming even more positive about who we are and what we can do. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Councilmember Rhodes?
Thank you for the presentation. I just have a question about ACE or ACES, I don't know what it's called now, but over in the Town Center Mall, is that scaling down or is it staying the same? And how are you addressing STEM and career technical education?
So career technical education is one of the solid foundations, I guess, for our district. And we want to bank on that to make sure that we support it. So now the ACE program actually moved to Black Rock High School, right next to it. And so they're relocated, and we're going to have the same program. We're hoping to continue growing the program and continue servicing the community in that regards. Now, as far as CTE pathways, we're trying to find out what the needs are of the community. We can bring in pathways that may not relate to the community or the students. So we're trying to get more community members so that they can actually tell us these are what the needs are. I was speaking with some of the community members, and they say, you know what, we needed to work on the roofing of one of our buildings. And the one that we had, it took us 4 weeks to schedule just the re-roofing of the building. Said we need this, we need, for construction, we need all kinds of positions. For culinary experience, we need all kind of positions. So there's different CTE pathways that we want to go back and see, the drawing board and make sure we address those needs. But those that are needed in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Member Abe?
Dr. Vargas, first of all, I know this is your second year, but I want to welcome you to the Morongo Valley.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I was very excited to hear that you were hired, not only because I'm used to work in the former school district, Norwalk La Mirada School District, so I know the schools down there, and
Wonderful.
Each district has its own challenges, but I was excited that they hired you because I wanted to see somebody with an outside perspective come in. And of course, with any position, the first year is learning the position as far as the personalities you're dealing with. You have over 1,000 staff members, you have over 9,000 students, you have multiple campuses, you have a wide geographic area that you service. So your challenges are uniquely different here in the Morongo Basin than it is down in Norwalk La Mirada. Yes. So as you know, challenges are also opportunities. So what I wanted like to say is thank you for coming. I do thank you that you're gathering the information. I know one of your priorities is to raise test scores in our district because they are low. And I know that's something that's really important to you to see those things improved. And so I appreciate that. As you know, being in your profession, there is nothing outside of perhaps law enforcement and a few other things that have more of an impact on a community than schools. Fantastic school districts bring in people who want to live in that school district for their children. And there are teachers who want to come to that school district because of the reputation of the school district. So your job and your responsibility is hugely important and also has a huge domino effect upon the entire community. As you know, again, there are many challenges that you're facing, and I don't expect those challenges to be able to be corrected overnight because that wouldn't be wise. It would be wise to have a plan and to be aggressive in implementing that plan. So I hope after this 2 years and so forth, you're ready to really start, fine-tuning and really, demanding some real good changes for our district. Because again, it's so vitally important. I do know we have some outstanding students that have gone on to, Ivy League schools. We have a lot of things to brag about. But then you also have one of the largest special ed populations of any other school district. So you have those those students are on this one scale here, and then you have some basic services and needs over here. So I don't envy your job, and anybody who thinks they could do a better job, they've never been in your position. So I want to, first of all, support you. The other thing I wanted to make sure you know that our town does support the school district. We're very involved because it's our community. And then, you know, we've set aside funds for a school resource officer to help with school safety. I know the city of 29 Palms has done the same. We've gotten some wonderful resource officers through the years, and having that partnership. I know our sheriff's department has done a good job of outreach with kids, trying to keep them on the straight and narrow, trying to interact with them on a non-confrontational manner by being at their football games or coming to their awards banquets. So I just want to encourage that would continue on. With your challenges, one being teacher shortages. Staffing is a nationwide problem. Having a good workforce, giving incentives for people to come to the desert, because a lot of people want to be out on the coast, or they want to be in these districts that have this wonderful reputation. I hope we're looking at strategies in trying to recruit and retain some of the best teachers. Councilmember Drodes mentioned the ACE program, which now has some of the best teachers in the district working there. I hear the people that get recruited or leave the classroom to go into a more of a one-on-one situation, and you have some of the best in that ACE program. So congratulations on that. I know you had some challenges with facilities that you're still working out, but that program should be one of your shining stars, because you're going to get great results with those teachers. With the partnership and having resource officers, who is now the Director of Risk Management? I know you've hired that position.
Yes, it's Mr. Jack Salcida.
Okay, so school safety is a concern, you know, nationwide and so forth. I'm sure it's a concern of yours. I understand that we've upgraded our locking systems on doors. They're continuing to progress. You talked about shatterproof windows and those types of things. Surveillance cameras continue to be increased. So I really appreciate your efforts in that. It is one thing to have a campus where education goes on, but it's another thing that you get the best results from your staff and your students if they feel safe. So a safe campus is really important, and one of the things that we had a concern with as a council is how safe are our campuses. The other thing is that with that safety in mind, there's opportunities that have been taken away from you because laws have changed. So you don't have some of the tools that you used to have to correct student behavior. One of the, you mentioned how our schools rated. One of the ways schools are rated, which is public information that you have available on your website, seeing test scores and comparing them to other districts, is also the expulsion rate and problems with that. What concerns me sometimes is you may have principles or you may have a philosophy that we can't suspend a student that is causing that, you know, that 2%, 5% that's causing disruption for the 85 or 90%, and making it a very difficult place to teach and a very difficult place to learn, that we're not suspending or correcting some of those students or removing them because we don't want to look bad on a report. So as a superintendent, I hope that you will consider these comments and give some leadership guidelines to your staff, saying school safety is important. We may have some down years, or we might not look good on paper with the state on expulsion rates or suspension rates, but if it makes our campus safer and it keeps our teachers wanting to work in the district, maybe that's something we need to look at. So that's my request. I guess I'm not asking questions, but I'm trying to give you some feedback. Facility improvements, the district has done a wonderful job. I'm a longtime employee, is now retired, so I've seen facilities improve over and over and over again, and you guys are moving in the right direction. I know the community helped with bond issues and bond monies, and that's been wisely spent, so I congratulate you on that. I know that you're sort of like the town of Yucca Valley, we're behind in those types of maintenance issues, and it's forever trying to catch up. Lack of internet capability for your students is, I know, is a challenge that's sort of outside of your sphere of influence, but hopefully, as time goes on, we get more internet connectivity for your students so they can do research, they can do online learning, they can do other things. And again, I wanted to thank you so much for the opportunity to come here and speak to us and for us to meet you in person. One thing I would suggest, with teacher turnover or teachers leaving schools to go somewhere else, one thing that I would think would be helpful to you is to have some type of an exit survey where that employee can say, hey, I left, maybe just to you, because, you know, they don't want to ruffle feathers with other people or hurt people's feelings, but maybe just with you, I left because they offered me more money, or I left because I didn't feel safe, or I left because I'm leaving the profession, and this is why I'm leaving the profession. If you get that feedback, maybe we can increase retention.
Mayor Dennison, I'm going to take Councilmember Abel to my cities, different communities and groups. I mean, he just summarized the whole thing, I mean, in a beautiful way. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. There was a lot of good comments, you know, from all the council members, and they're true. I think all of us have been here for many years and watched, you know, our kids grow up in our community. And it's a very important piece. One of the things that you led off with, that it is a place of learning. And then, you know, and you also included the safe environment that you're continuing to do. And the other council members have already talked about the tools being used in that. The hardening of the glass, like you talked about, the locking system that we've been looking forward to over time, and then the education component on how to mitigate any threats to our children so they have that safe learning environment. And you can focus on the job of that. That's what the teachers are trained to do. That's what they want to do. It's very difficult for them to take the role of security also. A lot of times these teachers with more tenure, that wasn't really their original sign-up. So it's kind of hard to get those players in place, but the mission is very vital. Early on, a few years back, we had started talking about locking systems and the great expense that the district sees doing that. And not just that, you spoke a little bit about getting one of your roofs repaired and the time that was consumed to just take care of one site. It also, in the past, I was just asking the HVAC systems and the ventilation systems and those things when the rooms are now sealed up. That was something that I know had been started, or the funding for it. And has that gotten movement throughout the district on the buildings?
We actually have updated, I mean, most of the systems, and we have only a few sites that have a few rooms that have still, I mean, the systems that need to be updated. So we're continuing to do that, and we're hoping to finish, I mean, this school year.
Well, thank you. I think enough has been said on that. We all are champions of the school district. We want to be your partner. We want to make sure that we can always be there to create a safe environment, not just in the schools, but in our community for our children.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Well, that was great to hear. We don't often get to have the superintendent here to talk about our complex district that we have throughout the basin. One of the largest organizations in the Morongo Basin is our school district. It stretches to every level, young and old, and throughout the entire area. After that, we do have an introduction of a new employee for our town of Yucca Valley. I'll take it to staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I actually have two staff recognitions I'd like to do this evening. The first one is I wanted to recognize and bid farewell to our museum registrar and exhibits coordinator, Vanessa Cantu. Vanessa's not with us tonight, but she's already made her way to the next chapter of her career with the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento. But we wanted to take this time to recognize her many contributions to the town and its High Desert Nature Museum. She was a graduate of Yucca Valley High School. She went on to earn a BA in anthropology at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, then earned her MA in museum studies from John F. Kennedy University in 2013, and then started at the museum as a staff member in 2014. And she's been with us for over 9 years. She worked with the museum staff to create wonderful exhibits for our residents. She brought devotion and enthusiasm to her position. She also expanded our professional practices at the museum. As you know from her presentations, she developed collections-based applications, including implementing collection policies and procedures, maintaining museum records, cataloging acquisitions, conducting inventories, and monitoring our collection environments, in addition to planning, fabricating, and curating exhibitions. I personally have the privilege of working with Vanessa and observed her dedication to accomplishing the museum's mission. She contributed to the creation of strategic plans. They were focused and meaningful and resulted in improvements that made the museum interesting and relevant for the local community, as well as enticing visitors. She produced an impressive array of exhibits and programs, even during the pandemic shutdown, and all of that contributed to just raising the reputation of the High Desert Nature Museum. So this evening, we wanted to extend our thanks to Vanessa for the years of service and really the huge impact she's made on the High Desert Nature Museum. And we hope her next career adventure will be rewarding and exciting, and we certainly wish her well. And so this evening, in addition to some of the activities we had for her before her parting, we have a certificate of appreciation. And it says this certificate is awarded to Vanessa Cantu in recognition of her exceptional service to the town of Yucca Valley for over 9 years, with sincere appreciation for your dedication, commitment, and professionalism as a valued employee of the town of Yucca Valley. Thank you for your immeasurable contributions to the organization and the community. Presented this 5th day and signed by Mayor Dennison. Next, I'd like to invite Celeste Hildebrand up to the podium. At this time, I'd like to announce the appointment of Celeste Hildebrand as our supervisor for the High Desert Nature Museum. As supervisor, Celeste will be responsible for leadership and overall operations, development, management, planning, administration, curatorial affairs, and marketing for the museum. With a formal educational background in anthropology and education, Celeste comes prepared to share her knowledge and passion with the community. She's definitely shown her talent and dedication as our museum program coordinator, and we are thrilled to have Celeste move into this new role. We're certain that she'll inspire residents and visitors alike through the execution of the mission of the High Desert Nature Museum. Welcome, Celeste.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to say a few words?
I just wanted to thank the town for this opportunity. I am excited about the challenge that we have coming up, and I really look forward to meeting with all the council members and discussing the vision for our museum. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Celeste, I'd like to say that that you are my grandson's favorite town employee, and I'm sorry to burst your bubble, Curtis, but he cannot wait to go to the museum over and over again to see you and how much time you spend recognizing him and making sure he has a great museum experience. And I appreciate that. And I see you interacting with other people that come into the museum, so I'm thrilled that we have someone of your caliber who is now taking that operation over, and I know you'll make it a great experience for anyone who comes into the museum, whether you're there or one of the other employees is there. I'm sure it'll be even better than it's ever been, and that's a tall order to have. So congratulations and welcome again.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, there's another great person with the town of Yucca Valley, and I'm so excited. Thank you. The museum, just like you, my kids, when they were little, it was such a thrill to see the bugs glow under the light and just be able to touch things and do things. I recall quickly Vanessa, when she was here and she was tasked with the cataloging and inventorying of the entire museum, and she was so excited that she got to do that. And I mean, that's not an easy task, so very organized person, and best to her for sure. At this time, we'll go ahead and look for approval of the agenda.
Here, I'll make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Abel,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Dennison.
Yes. So right now, a consent agenda, so all items on the consent agenda are routine matters of formal Documents covering previous town council instruction items are enacted in one motion and a second without separate discussion unless a member of the town council or town staff requests dialogue on a specific item at the beginning of the meeting. A request for public comment on the consent agenda. Items should be filled out with the town clerk if you want to speak on any items in the consent agenda. Do we have anyone in the public that would like to speak on any item on the consent agenda tonight? Seeing none online? Nothing, and back to council? Any comments on any of the items?
I would like to pull item 7, please.
Item 7, okay, we'll pull item 7, so we'll be looking for a motion right now. Items 1 through 6 on consent, and we'll reopen 7.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve items 2 through 6 on the
Oh, I
consent
apologize.
agenda.
Yes. Items 2 through 6,
I will second that.
we have a motion, and a second, roll call?
Councilmember Zabel,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Dennison.
Yes. So for item 7, Town of Yucca Valley Skate Park Improvements Project, Award of Design Services to Sophin Ranch Incorporated. Councilmember Abel.
Yeah, the reason I pulled the item is that I was wanting to see if we might want to consider expanding the scope of the design, award of the design services to include the present facility that we have at the as a skateboard park. My thought is, I know that from the feedback of students and young people who use the skateboard park, they say that that park is fine for BMX bikes and for scooters, but it's not a very good skateboard park. So instead of losing a facility, tearing it down, spending the money to wipe it off and then do a new one, I was hoping that they could evaluate if we could use, instead of the money to destroy it, money to make some repairs on it and then expand it with another skateboard facility right next to it. So now we have 2 facilities for students or kids or adults now to use instead of just destroying one and replacing it with another. They could evaluate if it's safe, if it meets the safeguards, or if how much it would cost for some repairs. But I don't want to just have it destroyed if we could perhaps save it. That was my only thought.
All right, thank you. I have a comment on that also. I have had quite a few people that understand that it is a bit of history in Yucca Valley. The park, a lot of people, like you said, have learned, even my kids went there, or one daughter, skateboarding, and myself too. Fallen many a times over there, but not anymore. I guess one of the things is we did do some public outreach, so I think a lot of that would be looking deeper into the results of that and what the thoughts were, if that was a part of that survey that was done a couple of years ago, those pieces. Any other council member thoughts on the item?
I think it's brilliant. I like the idea of not having to destroy something and add to it, making necessary repairs or upgrades to safety requirements. I think is a brilliant idea. Do we have the space to do that?
Following the council member's request, I think the direction to staff would just be to include that as an assessment as part of what we're doing. There may be a whole range of issues that may support that movement, or there may be other considerations that we haven't even thought of that would need to be taken into consideration before we make a final decision. But clearly the direction, if it's the direction of the council this evening, we would just include that as part of the scope for the design team.
That's great. It's been off the radar for a while, and bringing it back on, I think this is a great addition to it. That could make it a even better situation. Let's increase the scope.
Okay, staff has direction, a motion,
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation to the staff.
and I'll second it.
Good.
Councilmember Zabel,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Dennison.
Yes. We're going to move on to item number 8, it's public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing at this time. Tonight, this public hearing was started as a request of an appeal, and Councilmember Abel has brought this item forward. I'd like to ask for any of his comments to start us.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes. First of all, I want to thank staff, and I also want to thank the planning department for doing an excellent job in taking a look at this particular project. I have no objections or concerns on the Planning Department's recommendations as presented, with only one change I would like to see perhaps made is the elimination of a requirement to do off-site improvements. My understanding is if you have a facility that was, let's say, a restaurant at one time, and they come in and remodel it, it's not a change of use, so there is no requirement for any off-site improvements. But once you change the use of an older building, then it will trigger off-site improvements, which can be very problematic with people wanting to upgrade or to fill an abandoned building. It would be great to see that could be waived for pre-existing buildings that are being fixed up and not trigger that off-site improvement requirement. New construction, I think we need to have the off-site improvements charged so we can do our highway expansion. But having vacant buildings that aren't being used, not being occupied, not being brought up to better standards by making this change, I think would be a wonderful thing. So that's the only reason I brought it back. I thought all the other accommodations the planning department did was spot on and very acceptable. It was just that one particular element that I would like to see taken back to the Planning Commission and have that eliminated for this project and then also for future projects that fall in the same guidelines.
All right, thank you very much, Councilmember Abel. Staff?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jared is going to give the PowerPoint presentation to the council this evening. There may be a couple slides in his presentation where I chime in a little bit, so I'll be trading off back and forth. Part of the presentation tonight is going to be related to the project, where we want to talk a little bit about Highway 62 and why those recommendations are included when staff takes items forward to the Planning Commission, and why your general plan and your development code are written the way they are. So with that, Jared.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. As Shane discussed, I'm going to kind of touch on what this project is, what our regulations are, and why they are what they are. So bear with me, these recommendations are fairly long. The recommendation for this item is for environmental assessment 04-23, that the town council finds that the project is exempt from CEQA under section 15301, class 1 existing facilities, since the proposed project consists of the operation, repair, maintenance, permitting, leasing, licensing, or minor alteration of existing private structure. Alternative recommendation 1, for the site plan review, that the town council upholds the planning commission action, denies the request for a waiver of infrastructure requirements based on the information in the staff report, and that the town council approves site plan review 03-23, Nice Stream ICES, a proposal to change the use of an existing 3,936 square foot structure located at 56778 29 Palms Highway from retail use to food service use. The total scope of the use would include a vegan scoop shop, cafe, bakery, cocktail bar, and retail on approximately 0.51 acres with parking and landscape improvements based on the information contained in the staff report. The recommendation for variance 01-23, that the town council approves variance 01-23, Nice Stream ICES, a request for a variance from the required 25 parking spaces per section 9.33 of the development code, reducing to 20 parking spaces based on the information in the staff report. The alternative recommendation 2, that the town council directs the planning commission to forward a recommendation to the town council for consideration of amending section 9.68.020D of the Yucca Valley Development Code, eliminating the requirement for construction of off-site improvements for change of use projects, and directs the planning commission to reconsider site plan review 03-23 following their recommendation to the town council for development code amendments. So a brief overview of the project. As I mentioned, it's a change of use from a retail structure to dining, retail, bar, cafe, and ice cream sales. Up here, you'll see a breakdown of how the space is used, but in summary, that's what the proposed uses are. The business would operate 6 days a week, closes on Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Due to the size and location of a San Bernardino County flood control channel, the Planning Commission approved a variance application for this project to reduce the required number of parking stalls from 25 to 20. Other design improvements, in addition to the change of use, is adding a trash enclosure at the northeast corner of the project site and landscaping, and I'll show you some plans and get into those details. So this is a site plan, a little bit difficult to see, but there's a better slide coming up. But they've added a trash enclosure here, landscape improvements along the east of the structure, and then the parking improvements. In this image, you could see that trash enclosure, the landscaping here, also some landscaping up here in the northwest. And then you could see how the site is impacted by the flood control channel, making it difficult to add additional parking due to that encroachment by the flood control channel. This is the elevations for the proposed project, so what the structure will look like once the project is complete. And you could see the mascot down here, hopefully eventually on the side of the building. There's a dog eating ice cream, if you can't tell.
I was wondering what it was.
So our code, chapter 9.68 of the code, requires a site plan review for the change of use of an existing structure. Section 9.68.020 D1 specifies that projects that fall within the thresholds of site plan review shall comply with the general plan, development code, applicable town ordinances and regulations, and this includes the half-width improvements, curb, gutter, sidewalk, streetlights if required, paving, et cetera, and we'll get into a little bit more detail. As part of the project, the applicant requested a waiver of $23,427 of in lieu fees for required infrastructure improvements per chapter 9.30.060 of the development code. Requirements for all improvements in the public right-of-way will be specified by the town. Requests for a waiver of any of these requirements may be made to the Planning Commission, who shall have the authority to approve modifications or reject any of the requirements. And then below that, you'll see the required findings. Those are that the waiver or modification of required improvement would not adversely affect the public health and safety, and that neither the improvements being waived nor the modifications authorized delete improvements which are a necessary prerequisite to the orderly development of the surrounding area. This is table 3-1 from our development code. It just gives you a little bit of a visual representation of when certain improvements are required. In this left-hand column, you'll see smaller residential subdivisions, less dense, and then on the end, industrial and commercial projects, non-residential. In a nutshell, you could see that all improvements are required for industrial and commercial projects. This is part of chapter 9.68, which is the site plan review chapter of our code. Here, letter C, you'll see that a change of use of an existing building requires a site plan review. and that projects that are subject to a site plan review require these improvements. Number one is the big one, half-width street improvements, curb, gutter, sidewalk, street lights, pavement, for all streets fronting the project. In your packet, you'll have a little more detailed of how other jurisdictions deal with this issue. Here's an excerpt of a few nearby jurisdictions and how they deal with off-site improvements for change of use. La Quinta and Adelanto require off-site improvements based on the recommendation of the Public Works Department. Coachella and Apple Valley require improvements based on the findings of the traffic analysis for the proposed project. Cathedral City typically does not require off-site improvements for change of use. Victorville requires improvements if the proposed project exceeds $32,000 in value. Desert Hot Springs requires off-site improvements if the existing improvements are not adequate for the proposed use. And the City of 29 Palms does not currently have a process for change of use and therefore does not request those improvements. However, I was told that they're actively working on that right now. So we have a few slides. Just being in our office, we do hear various social media rumblings.
So if I may, just for a moment, Jared, thank you. One of the priorities for the council has always been communicating out to the community good information on what the town standards are and why we have programs and policies the way they are. As a result of this project moving forward to the Planning Commission, there were some social media issues that appeared within the Morongo Basin that contained what I would classify as not technically correct information. So I've asked staff as part of the presentation this evening to talk about our general plan, both the original general plan in '95 as well as your 2014 general plan, as well as what SBCTA and Caltrans say about the future of Highway 62, not just in Yucca Valley, but in the Morongo Basin. Thank you, Jared.
On this slide, you'll see some information about the applicant's opinions about community disruption, the difficulty of smaller projects with those infrastructure improvements, some links to some of that information. Again, the cost of those investments, safety concerns, environmental impacts. I believe they address Joshua Tree issues, potential air pollution issues, et cetera. And then this was brought to our attention. Just a couple notes that we're going to address in future slides. The comment on the right, I believe, is from the applicant or someone associated with the applicant. And they note just a couple of minor things. Late into the permitting process, they were informed of the $24,000 fee, approximate $24,000 fee. And then later that the widening is not required or has been deemed not required by Caltrans. So I just want to address those two comments. You can see them here and then down here. So just to clarify those items, this is an email from one of our staff members to the representative for the project. This was within the 30-day review period for the project, so within 30 days of the submittal of the application. You'll see up here the in lieu fees are attached. The sample conditions of approval are attached. And noting down here that to see those in lieu fees. So this was within a month of application during the first review. This is our planning application, a screenshot of our planning applications page from the website, from the town's website. You'll see this is a site plan review application. Over here, you have your standard conditions of approval. We try to inform applicants of these, and I'll show you why. Next slide. The engineering conditions for the sample conditions of approval have several items describing what potentially would be included in conditions for either change of use or new construction. And these are specific to highway widening, constructing infrastructure, et cetera. So from the point of town staff, we believe that they were informed several times of potential improvements being required and in lieu fees being requested.
Jared, can you go back to the previous slide? Just want to touch base. The council is aware you've provided direction to staff on a number of occasions over the years about the use of the webpage and providing information to the community. One of those areas where the council has emphasized for a number of years has been in regards to development regulations. Staff put in an inordinate amount of time on that process. You can literally sit at home without walking into town office. You can pull up the application. You can pull up the standard conditions of approval. You can pull up the municipal code and check the requirements. You can do all of those things before you've ever even walked in the door and spoken to town staff. Now, Jared, if you'd go to the next slide. In our standard conditions of approval, which are made available, and one of the purposes of these is to communicate the type of requirements and standards that people should expect when they move forward with their project. And our conditions are very clear. You're going to build street improvements. You're going to build curb, gutter, sidewalk, street lights for your project frontages. And again, this is on the town's webpage. It's a standard part of the process. It's been there for years. We use that to communicate out to those people interested in developing here the requirements that they're going to run into. Thank you, Jared.
All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about why we have the standards that we have. This is an image from the Morongo Basin Area Transportation Study. The streets highlighted in red are indicated as operating at level of service F. F does not stand for fantastic in this case. It stands for failing, like you would on a report card. A, B, C, D, E, F is the traffic standards. So from the county line down here up to Highway 247, you could see that the level of service is failing for Highway 62.
So this is a report that's generated by the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority. This covers the entire Morongo Basin, so from the county line all the way out to east of 29 Palms. And as they prepare this model, and SBCTA has the model for the Morongo Basin, as this community develops and grows, what this illustrates is that Highway 62 from the county line to the intersection of 62 and 247 will fail without widening from 4 to 6 lanes. What does fail mean? We're going to get to the technical definition of that in a few more slides, but what it truly means when an organization lets a roadway segment fail is you usually have a termination of management staff and a recall of elected officials. That's how bad highway movement is. And I think the council has seen Highway 62 approaching that level during the busy season over the last few years in visitation to the national park, where you sit at 62 and 247 for 3 cycles of the traffic signal before you get through. That's approaching level of service F. So Jared?
This next slide, you'll see that in tabular information. You could see western Yucca Valley to Highway 247. This is without improvements, would be operating at level of service F. And you'll see that all of these are level of service F. This you'll see with and without improvements from the same study. So on the column down the center, that is without improvements, so without the highway widening. You'll see each segment is operating at level service F. And then with the improvements, and you'll see that notes adding a travel lane in each direction, it increases within the town boundary to level of service C or better. All right, so I'm going to address some of the information from Caltrans in their transportation concept report. This is from 2017. You can see there at the bottom, one of the more recent studies. In this table, you'll see the plans for widening the highway, widen main line from 4 lanes to 6 lanes. So this is included in the Caltrans plans and studies. You can see stakeholder participation down here. So who reviewed the plans, who gave input to the plans. Southern California Association of Governments, Riverside County Transportation Commission, San Bernardino County Transportation Authority, Riverside and San Bernardino counties, Desert Hot Springs, 29 Palms, Yucca Valley, and then the various tribal stakeholders in the region as well. All right, so top of this slide, that second sentence specifically. So basically, operational and safety improvements are proposed using SHOP funds. So those things of sidewalk improvements, safety improvements are funded through a Caltrans program. But capacity improvements, that's widening, are planned in the town of Yucca Valley where future growth may increase congestion. So that is basically due to the land use activity. So when we approve a project on the highway, that project has an impact on their highway system, and the town would be responsible for those improvements.
So on this slide, the top paragraph without the circle around it is from the current concept route report dated 2017. And you'll notice where they separate operational and safety improvements, they're going to use the state SHOP funds. They don't address capacity enhancements. When you read the bottom paragraph is from the 2002 State Route 62 concept report. And this kind of gives you an idea of Caltrans's perspective. Because the additional capacity is to accommodate planned local development, and since State Route 62 is not a focus, gateway, or high-emphasis route, any major facility improvements will most likely be funded through the local development process or other local jurisdictional private means. The 2020 route concept is maintained only for those segments in the unincorporated area. So you can see the message that Caltrans is delivering both in the 2017 version as well as the 2002 version in terms of growth impacts. Jared?
All right, so now we're going to jump back a little bit in time and go back to our 1993 general plan traffic study. So on the column in the center, you have the existing conditions level of service at that time. So basically A all across the board. Then the estimated 2015 level of service, you'll see that those numbers start to drop, or the delay increases, the level of service drops down to D and F, D, E, F. And then 2015 with mitigation, that's with the lane expansion, then those level of services start to increase back up. In some cases, still D and E with that mitigation, but substantially improved. Here's a little explanation on how level of service works. I'm just going to skip to the bottom. You'll see level of service F. There's a visual representation of that. Level of service F is a stop and go low speed conditions with little or poor maneuverability. Speed and traffic flow may drop to zero and considerable delays occur. For intersections, level of service F describes operations with delay in excess of 60 seconds per vehicle. This level, considered by most drivers to be unacceptable, often occurs with oversaturation when arrival flow rates exceed the capacity of the intersection. So basically, there's more cars trying to get through that part of the highway than the highway can carry. Okay, now the 2014 general plan. This is the map from our circulation element. So you could see in 2014, This kind of heavier dark purple line indicates a 134-foot right-of-way. So that includes the expansion of the highway, adding a travel lane in each direction. The development code standard applies to change of use for all commercial structures. If the council desires that this policy be addressed for change of use for all commercial structures, then the council would consider alternative 2, the alternative 2 recommendation. And just to refresh you on that, that recommendation is that the town council directs the planning commission to amend that section of the code requiring these improvements for a change of use to the planning commission. And with that, I can answer questions after public comment.
So, Mayor and Council, thank you for letting us take a little bit of a side route here this evening and talk about the widening of Highway 62. But during public testimony to the Planning Commission, comments were made that the widening of the highway was unnecessary, that it appeared on social media, and therefore the need to address that issue so that the technical information is before the community, as both the council as well as the Planning Commission make land use decisions, and the importance that that highway has to this community. The town staff presentation is complete. We'd be happy to answer questions following the public hearing.
Thank you, staff, for that update, and especially in regards to our traffic flow in our area. I think we're all aware of it. This time, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. If you have a public comment or a comment on the item, it'll be on this item only. You can talk to the town clerk and submit a sheet to talk, and we'll go from there. So, Madam Clerk, you start us off.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have our applicant here. Would you like to begin?
Hello, I'm Trevor Simpkin, my partner Coral. We weren't planning on addressing the highway widening project here. We think the change of use and lieu fees are enough for like the betterment of this town. But since Shane and Jared brought this up, we did reach out to Caltrans and they did provide a letter, a signed letter, in response to just general information about this project. So I want to share that. It seems, yeah, well, we can discuss a little after. But just to read it verbatim, Dear Miss Lee, Coral's, they're responding to a question from Coral. Thank you for contacting the department regarding your inquiry about any planned general capacity additions from existing 4 travel lanes to the 6 travel lanes or widening projects on State Route 62 in the town of Yucca Valley. Currently, there are no active lane additions or widening projects for SR 62 through the town of Yucca Valley. There are some portions of this route that were previously widened but not striped for additional lanes. Due to SB 743 legislature, the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, was amended and states that any future widening projects would require an environmental determination by the department. According to one of the most recent Transportation Concept Report, TCR, completed in 2017, the route is adequate for travel with or without added lanes. Additionally, the department has, Additionally, the department has shifted to using vehicle miles traveled, or VMTs, as a primary performance metric to identify future transportation investments under the SB 743 legislature. The department is increasingly focused on identifying projects which help improve transportation mode choices, reduce vehicle miles traveled, and will not induce significant passenger vehicle travel. Regarding why the city has asked for the fees to improve infrastructure, local governments are allowed to pass local legislation and measures and assess development impact fees that help generate infrastructure improvements. We recommend that you reach out to your local agency and speak to them regarding the fees they are charging the local businesses. If you have further questions, you can contact, it's from Ray DeSell, who is the District 8 Director. So I just want to point out, yeah, we weren't kind of just spouting that Caltrans didn't need this project. They have given us an official response saying the lanes are adequate as they are. But to kind of pivot and talk what we came to talk about today, Coral's gonna read something that we've prepared.
Hi. Hello, council and community members that are all here with us today. We are overwhelmed by the support that's come our way since news of ice cream's arrival and resultantly all permitting and appeal process that delay its landing has quickly traveled through our small town. We wanted to express our gratitude for everyone hearing this issue today, which, as we are, all feeling right now, will greatly impact the town's look, feel, and ultimately success of our future. We started this process over a year ago, and we naively thought we could start building in a matter of months, not years. We have invested upwards of $50,000 of our personal savings on this project's requisite studies, administrative fees, and designs. But, when an invoice comes and we see that it takes several months of ice cream sales to pay for that invoice, what keeps us steady in that moment is the belief and vision of this communal space that Yucca Valley residents can gather in, feel inspired by, feel proud to drive by, and ultimately find salve in. We've always believed in food as this uniquely powerful tool to bridge differences in culture, experience, and language, and we look forward to contributing to a more diverse and more interconnected Yucca Valley. In the same way that our ice cream business would not exist without our wonderful customers, so too do we need our city that we do business in to support us. We're humbly requesting that the town show their support not only of small business owners, but the citizens daring to invest in and change the trajectory of Yucca's future. And you, council members, can demonstrate that by waiving the infrastructure fee requirement of all change of use projects. By requiring this fee of all projects, we are discouraging new property owners from even considering the number of abandoned lots and buildings along the highway. There is no incentive to, but instead a penalty for, revitalizing buildings that are past their prime. We bought a building that needed a lot of love because we know its transformation from this multicolor building into one color will breathe a lot of new life into Yucca Valley. For the town to support others in also taking a chance on an abandoned building or lot will pay for itself tenfold. Let's encourage our residents and visitors to spend more time and money within our town rather than driving past eyesores and into adjoining cities. Waiving the fees for change of use projects will not by itself transform the highway, but it will catapult us in the right direction. Your decision tonight communicates to small business owners not only if you want our presence, but also our survival. We strongly urge you to remove the requirement of infrastructure fees for change of use projects here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there questions? Or?
We'll go ahead and run through public comment, and then we may ask you to return. Thank you.
So next we have Stephen Lapp, and then followed by Heather Marshall.
I just wanted to take time to echo Councilman Abel's opinion on this particular scenario that we have here. Over the past year, I've talked to a number of businesses that were looking to do something like this, to upgrade their property. And they've told me straight out, they said, we didn't do it because we couldn't afford that particular fee. So I know for sure of at least 2 other businesses besides Nice Dreams, which project essentially stopped, the upgrade essentially stopped, which is probably not something we would want, right? With each of these particular businesses and upgrades, that's increased revenue, and it's also increased tax revenue, and it also provides people visiting Yucca Valley and who live in Yucca Valley new opportunities to eat or shop and any of those particular things. And I know I've been to a few of these meetings before, and I know that a big thing that we're all very proud of is our Route 62. It's the entranceway to Yucca Valley. I forget the exact words of it. But allowing these particular upgrades provides the ability to do upgrades to 62, gives Yucca Valley a better view. People can come in and see, how vibrant of a community we are. And it also requires less work on the side of the town of Yucca Valley. And I just wanted to make sure to bring that up as part of this. And I know, not really sure why the road widening and the social media posts were brought up as part of this particular conversation. I don't necessarily think that was very fair. you know, especially because this conversation was specifically around the change of use permitting that we were discussing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Heather Marshall, followed by Jesse Ditson.
Hello. Hi. Hello, Town Council, and thank you for your service. My name is Heather Marshall. I am a Yucca Valley resident, social worker, public speaking avoider, and ice cream aficionado. I'm here in support of Nice Dreams Ices, as well as other future impacted businesses, with a request to the town of Yucca Valley to update the local planning codes to remove change of use from inclusion in requirements for these infrastructure improvements, including the widening of Highway 62. As a property owner in Yucca Valley, it makes more sense to me to fund this type of infrastructure development through a bond measure voted on by residents and paid through property taxes. With so many vacant buildings along Highway 62 that could use rehabilitation and revitalization, it's incomprehensible to me that the town would place such a significant financial burden on small business owners looking to pursue their dream here, especially when that dream includes providing us with delicious ice cream. I support these small business owners and future small business owners that want to change the use of a building. And I hope the town shows their support as well by removing this owner's fee requirement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesse Ditson, and then we'll have Jesse Turner.
Members of City Council, my name is Jesse Ditson, and I'm a community member and a full-time resident in the area. I'm a relatively new resident, and I moved here in 2020. And I believe you would agree that this area is undergoing a period of really positive growth and change. And I think people have noticed my neighborhood has attritioned many multi-decade residents to short-term rentals. Large chains have taken notice of the tourism traffic, and we've gotten some non-seasonal residents. We're capitalizing by building Chipotles and car washes and big box grocery stores, and those are all fantastic things to build to the community. And I welcome the external interest. But personally, I've also been surprised by the low velocity of local business growth. There have been local businesses that have opened. We've seen some really cool things like Tiny Pony and Copper Room that have opened here and been really successful. But I still drive by many empty strip malls and wonder what the creative and industrious people of Yucca Valley would do if they had a chance to open something there. And so today, my ask is to prioritize the business aspirations of local businesses and local community members over sort of capital-laden external interests. And for a small business, a highway expansion fee and off-site improvements creates a massive burden to their ability to open. And I believe it will have and has had a chilling effect on the ability for small businesses to be built here that serve our community. And for a chain, I also do believe that it is totally fair to ask a small percentage of their overall budget. And even for a small business, it may be fair to ask for a small percentage of your overall budget. But when I think of the way that this fee has been scaled, it seems like it's really having a really specific effect on the ability of certain businesses to open and others to succeed. And consider that say a $75,000 expansion fee, which would be a lot more than kind of what I think we typically ask, would be less than 0.5% of a $1.5 million project, which, let's be real, is small money compared to what's being put into the Aldis of the world. Whereas if a local business were to pay that same 0.5%, you would end up, let's say if they cost $100,000 or $150,000, we'd be talking about $2,500, $5,000, something that really could be worked into a budget of a business like Nice Dreams. So I guess generally, I think a few $1,000s really can make or break a local business. I think that there really is a zero-sum activity happening with the way that we've implemented the highway expansion fee. And while it is not my personal responsibility to, I'm an engineer, but I am not a city planner, and I have no idea how to make sure that we have the best traffic going through. But what I can say is that this particular fee feels kind of like it's causing a very specific effect, which is the way we prioritize very large businesses. We make it pretty hard for us to take the empty businesses that I drive by every day and turn them into something useful and good for our community. So I'd compel you to invest in your constituency and waive the highway expansion fees for these change of use buildings, and perhaps even reconsider the way that they're applied to businesses in the future. But starting with Nice Dreams ICES. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Jesse Turner.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to share tonight. My name is Jessie Turner. I come with the perspective of a new resident of Yucca Valley, someone who has previously worked in city government, a weekly patron of Nice Dreams, someone hoping to have a brick and mortar business in Yucca Valley someday. As a potential future business owner, keeping a watchful eye on this process with Nice Dream, I've been pondering a few questions. Question 1, are the hurdles too high for an average resident to buy an existing building, manage necessary fees and permits, renovate existing building, and fund possible future city projects? I'm fearful that there is not a path for the mom and pops anymore in this process, or the young entrepreneurs, or those who will have to save a very long time to even take a shot at something really exciting that they've been planning. Charging the full fees for new construction can make sense. Charging the same fees for adaptively reusing an existing structure seems like an unreasonable burden to the business owner. Small businesses can and should pay their fair share, but what if that fair share meant a business having a reasonable chance to establish and succeed? Question 2. Does Yucca Valley have a plan for revitalizing the empty but often charming buildings along Highway 62? I see a theme going on tonight. I've noticed that more and more buildings are sitting empty. I've also noticed the new construction going up. I'm hopeful the city comprehensive plan and resulting codes can value current resource revitalization in tandem with the other opportunities presented. Tourism, of course, is a deeply important industry to this area. We all know this. We've all read the studies that highlight that tourists show up for the unique and the interesting and the locally specific. The Joshua trees make this town special, but so do all the quirky, interesting local spots to stop and spend money. I'm interested in a future Yucca Valley where an average local resident can have a really great idea that will bring people and dollars to this community. I'm interested where we incentivize the revitalization of buildings we have currently that need updating, where the implementation of codes reflect a community that is a destination, not a pass-through, where delicious local ice cream shops can thrive financially as a contribution to this community. Thank you for considering.
Thank you for your comments.
That's all the requests I have right now.
So is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on the item? If you do, please leave your name with the clerk upon finishing.
Hello, Jeff Brady, longtime resident of Yucca Valley, 23 years now. I am here in support of Nice Dreams' request for a variance. This was a very informative presentation by the town staff. I learned a lot tonight. With that, just getting into the highway widening and the approaching failure, I think it has been exacerbated over the last few years. We're growing exponentially, as we all know. For new business development impact fees, I fully agree those should be levied. We do have the Chipotles, the Quick Quacks, et cetera, coming in. And I know that there's the common misconception that Chipotle and all these people are paying for it. It's really the franchise owners. You have to be a franchise owner to open these. So it's also, other people that are other business owners that are paying for it. But a new business, I believe, should have to pay for an impact fee. But the building is already there. It's been there for a long time. And we have so many vacant buildings, like everybody has said so far. And I think that if this change of use piece stays in the code, these buildings are going to stay vacant because nobody, it used to be a tattoo parlor, and we have a lot of tattoo parlors already. I don't really think we need another one. So I think that if this stays in the code, that these buildings won't be rehabbed, but if something is done, they could be turned into thriving businesses and members of the economy, looking at the 1993 traffic study that was brought up, we knew this was coming. We knew that if you look at those numbers, we had the, 2013, it was Ds, Cs, Ds. I know in my report card, if I got those, my parents didn't like those. So what have we done since 1993, and why are we now looking for small business owners to have that when we've known since 1993 that by 2025 something was going to happen? So I think that something should have been done by then. My other questions was, when the structure was built, was it assessed development impact fees? I know they were probably different back when it was built. For me, alternative 2 makes the most sense. Let's update the change of use code and help and spruce up our Highway 62 corridor that has a lot of vacant buildings. Please support small business like Nice Dream Ice. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for stepping up.
Yeah, thanks. Hello, council members, community members. My name is Adam Talad. I am also a new resident living in Joshua Tree. Councilmember Abel, I hope you'll respect that it's an outside perspective speaking today. This is my first ever town council meeting. I am not as prepared as all these other speakers, but I would just like to share my support for Nice Dream Ices and their request for variance. I would also like to thank the Planning Committee for offering that really in-depth explanation of things that I have no idea about. But again, from the outside perspective, it feels like the density of that presentation and the requirement for that over $23,000 fee is a little bit out of balance. As Jesse before me said before, there's a chilling effect and there's a zero-sum effect going on for local businesses or for new businesses trying to start up a place in our community as it is. And I don't think it's fair for a person, especially with my partner who's also a cottage food vendor for San Bernardino County. I understand just how difficult and how much courage it takes to even start a business. And the idea that you would have to go through that level of detail to identify a $23,000 fee in order to then realize that your investment of $50,000 or over $50,000 is now spent. I think that's a little bit unfair. There's a level of clarity that I think needs to happen. And I think that in general, we talked a lot about approaching a level of failure. And to me, that chilling effect of having not a clear pathway of success, as you said, Councilmember Lombardo, for our students, there needs to be a clear pathway of success in terms of having a small business start in an existing property without having to pay an exorbitant amount of fees. To me, an exorbitant amount of fee on small businesses, to me, I think that is approaching a different level of failure in our communities. And any sort of scaling back or consideration that you can offer to Nice Dream Ices as a symbolic gesture, not only to them, but to other local food vendors, cottage food vendors who are hoping to be inspired rather than disheartened by this process, I think would be much appreciated. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. All right, seeing no one else standing up, we will move over to online. Do we have anyone online? Nothing, then I'll go ahead and bring it back to the council, and I'll start off with Councilmember Abel.
Well, first of all, thank you for all those that came to speak tonight. Jared, if you can come back up, I have a couple questions for you. And I do appreciate a perspective from anyone in the Morongo Basin because we all have an effect on each other. So for residents that might be looking at this later or online, we always, as a council, want to hear from people, whether they actually live within the city limits or the town limits, or just a resident or somebody who comes and uses or stays in our area. We'd love to get your feedback because it does have an impact upon everyone. And I'm also very, very proud that I've started to see downtown Yucca Valley start to have the really neat, innovative, cool places to go. We're really starting to surpass what's offered in Joshua Tree because there's so many great places to stop, as a few of you mentioned some of the new businesses. and they've been young entrepreneurs for the most part who've come in and changed old buildings and made them new again. So I appreciate it. Jared, you had a slide up there that showed the different cities and their different policies. Can you bring that back up? And then also, Jared, I also wanted to make sure you had shown in your slideshow, as you're bringing that up, whoever has it, in your slideshow, you showed a survey that was put out there trying to get people to come to our meeting or give feedback and so forth. You had a town logo on that, on those pages. That was your logo you added, right? They're not using our logo on their petition. Is that
That's correct.
Okay. So anybody who's watching that, because at first I'm thinking, what in the world are they using our logo on a petition and making it look like a town's petition, which actually it wasn't. So just wanted to clarify that for people in the audience, because at first I was taken back, like, whoa, that's not right. Also, I do have to admit, I was getting a bit perturbed with the detail of the presentation on the off-site improvements and why we have them. I think everyone on the council understands and agrees that we have to have off-site improvements because our highway will reach, and it has already gotten close to capacity, so that's not the concern. And it was a very long presentation, but then Mr. Brady brought me around and said, you know, he found it informative. So I understand you included that because of maybe what you felt was misinformation on that petition, and you wanted the public to be aware that highway improvements are needed, and that's why we have these fees involved. So if that was the intent, I appreciate that, but again, I was getting a little bit perturbed, like, do you think we want to waive all those fees? And that's not the case. What struck me as interesting is how all over the place each of these local areas are as far as their change of use. But I did really like what I saw where it said Desert Hot Springs requires off-site improvements if the existing improvements are not adequate for the proposed use. And I think that's really probably an important thing to consider, because my thought was let's just waive any fees for a change of use, but if that change of use really does require a sidewalk out in front or some type of improvement or a gutter or something like that to prevent whatever it is that use, Desert Hot Springs may have something there that we want to consider or have the Planning Commission consider when dealing with these change of use or in lieu of the change of use fees or the off-site fees for change of use. Have you gotten any other feedback of communities impacted in a negative way where people can't invest in older buildings, or do you guys get that detailed, or you just find out what their policy is?
For this slide in particular, we are just finding out what their policy are, how they enforce it, why they enforce it.
Okay, and my understanding is this particular building does have a sidewalk out in front, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that I do know that the applicant, I believe, was happy with the process that the Planning Commission went through to accommodate maybe limitations in parking, and they were really trying to work with the applicant, but they were prevented from eliminating these fees because that's policy, right? Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and so that's the reason I brought it back. I thought the Planning Commission did an excellent job. I thought staff did an excellent job, but Planning Commission can only follow the policies that we set in stone or we set up, and for any of those variants or changes, it really does need to come back to us. So I wanted to thank, again, everyone who came. I also want to congratulate you on getting a quick response from Caltrans. That's not always the case. Caltrans is hard to get a hold of. So I was impressed that you got such a lengthy response in coming back. I just don't want us to handcuff young entrepreneurs or older entrepreneurs or investors from having a building be used as its, highest and best use. And if that means changing its use from a retail or a tattoo place to a little restaurant, I don't want those off-site fees to hinder that process. So again, I think every person who spoke, I took a lot from each one, and you're right on. We want to encourage these older buildings to be repurposed. And we want that even more than seeing new buildings going up, because new buildings destroy part of our desert. These buildings are already there, so why not encourage their use and try to encourage redevelopment in the movie theaters and the abandoned buildings and all that, instead of discouraging the use. So anything we can do as a council, I believe, to help get those abandoned buildings safe and used to their highest and best use, I'm in favor of. So I'm glad to see so many people supporting that alternative recommendation number 2 and sending it back to the Planning Commission for reconsideration.
Mayor and Council, if I may, and just to follow up on Councilmember Abel's comments. Number one, Jared didn't put that information in the presentation. He did that at my direction, and let me tell you why. You have a land development application before the Planning Commission and Town Council where they've circulated in public, quote, "We call upon the Yucca Valley Town Planning Department, Planning Commission, and Town Council to halt the widening of State Route 62 immediately. There are many studies challenging the efficacy of highway widening as a tool to reduce traffic." We have an obligation, and I think the council's aware of this, and many times our presentations, even though we're giving it to the council, are not for the town council, they're for the community. We have an obligation to set the record straight on what those technical issues are that we face in the physical development of this community, and that's why the staff presentation was structured the way it was this evening. We know the council understands this issue. We know that SBCTA, the Regional Transportation Authority, has allocated
$34 million for this project.
$34 million for the first phase of widening Highway 62, which has been initiated. So again, we do apologize that it was a lengthy conversation, but I felt it was extremely important based upon the information that was floating through the basin. So thank you for that.
Okay, comment of the council members? Yes, Councilmember Gross.
I concur with Councilmember Abel. I think it should be easier for small businesses to use existing buildings. I think that's really important. And especially with the Planning Commission went from, what, 75 parking spaces to 70? So that's actually less use, possible use than before. Is that correct?
Just to clarify, it went from 25 to 20.
Or 25 to 20, it went down 5, okay. And so there's actually less spaces now than there were before. And has anybody ever paid fees on this building before it was the tattoo place? Does anybody know?
So the structure was constructed under county jurisdiction. It's very doubtful that the county had any form of impact fees in place at the time that that structure was built.
Okay. Well, anyway, thanks for the great presentation by the town and all the comments from everybody out there. I think it's wonderful. And just so you know, the town council does listen to comments, and I'm in favor of number 2 also. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Schooler.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to thank Councilmember Abel for filing the appeal and making this possible for us to have this discussion this evening. And thank you to all of those who have showed up to voice their opinion. It's actually gratifying to see so many new residents to the community, new young residents taking part in the process here. And that's not lost on me, and I'm sure it's not lost on the other council members, but that's really important and really good to see. I think Councilmember Abel laid it out pretty clearly, and I support the comments that he made and the logic and the rationale that he established in doing so. We do need to support the renovation of older buildings in town. I think a lot of people have mentioned that. Our alternative is we would have a lot of older buildings getting older and getting shabbier, and we don't want that in this community. So when we have the opportunity to support the renovation of older buildings for a cool purpose. Actually, we do always say, that we would like to have more places to go hang out and eat, and this kind of fits what we're looking for in general. I think there's a big question is, what do we want our town to be? And times change. When I think Jeff Brady brought it up that, okay, we knew a long time ago that a highway's going to need widening. It wasn't us that knew that. Nobody in this room really knew that or had the wherewithal to just make that happen. So it takes time. Government doesn't move very quickly. And town of Yucca Valley until very recently was really getting by on a shoestring financially. And so these kinds of projects had to be kicked down the road just because there was not the funding to do that. So, but I appreciate the background on the traffic studies and the projection that we will have to widen the highway. Personally, I can't even imagine the highway getting widened in some areas. It just doesn't, it doesn't, I don't know what that's going to look like, but I think if we want to move traffic through and if we want to avoid a bigger problem later of log jams and congestion, then we've got to understand the reality of that. Yucca Valley is a strip town. I mean, there's one way through town, and then we've got some alternative routes that go through residential neighborhoods. So it's a difficult problem to get people through towns. And as the park has gotten more popular, and there's traffic to the Marine base and traffic to the river, and there's increasing traffic all the time. So we're going to have to accommodate that, and I think that's important to keep that in mind, that we do have to find a way to move people through town so that we don't surprise ourselves someday and say, oh yeah, we should have thought of that. So it's good to think about that now. But on this issue, I mean, the bigger issue this evening is the use of the building and the requirement, just because they're changing the use, that they would have to pay this additional fee. It occurs to me that if they had just leased the building, well, I guess this is a question. If they had just leased the building, would they, and put in an ice cream concern, would they be having to pay the fee?
Yes.
Oh, they would, okay, yes. All right. Well, anyway, it seems to me that having to pay that fee on top of everything else, because they're changing the use of the building, might be something that made sense years ago for whatever reason, and but as things change, maybe it doesn't make as much sense anymore. Let's see. I really do like to see the entrepreneurial spirit, especially the young entrepreneurs coming in, starting businesses. It was brought up that it's not easy to do what we call a mom and pop business anymore. Yucca Valley used to have the buildings in town that are now the older buildings, used to have not smoke shops and tattoo parlors and such, but it was contractors, house builders, other concerns. There were camera shops, there were shoe stores, there were the kinds of mom and pop businesses that used to happen, but they don't happen. They got squeezed out by like everywhere else in the country, by bigger box stores. But you don't see those individual camera shops, shoe stores, and so forth. Clothing stores. We used to have that in town. I can remember that, but you don't see that now. So we've got empty buildings, and we do have people going in and trying things, and I think that's good when we can go in and try a new mom and pop business, and I appreciate the courage that it takes to do that. I think that's a big step, and you put a lot on the line to do that. So I appreciate that. What else? I guess, yeah, to me, the bottom line is, what do we want our community to look like, and how can we support that? And I know that, we do have to keep the long view in mind of traffic counts and traffic studies and highway widening and so forth. We need to keep that in mind, but I do think I support, I think it's alternative to, where we can not require that fee for highway widening just because of the change of use. So, thank you.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm also excited about the opportunities for small business. It does seem to be an onerous burden to have to pay fees of that size for just the change of use. Question to staff. Is a bond an appropriate mechanism to pay for the widening of the highway or not?
You know, at the end of the day, I think those questions are going to be questions that the community has to address at the right time. So as I think through this, as you're discussing it tonight, that may be the policy direction that the council wants to have on this issue, and it may be completely appropriate for that purpose.
Yep.
At the end of the day, if the project still needs to occur, then it just gets funded a different way, but likely will be spread to different parts of the community. So maybe in this case, this business owner or a different business owner, they don't pay their in lieu fee at the time that the funding needs to be consolidated for the project moving forward. Maybe it comes from other residents in Yucca Valley. It probably won't come from people in Joshua Tree or Morongo Valley where I live, but likely from the residents here. So it's just a shifting of funds for various policy purposes that the council deems correct at the right time or the priority at the right time. So previous councils have identified that, hey, look, upon incorporation in 1991, this community was infrastructure deficit and remains that way today. The needs are abundant throughout the community, and it doesn't go without a day that we get requests for road improvements in my area. When are they going to happen? When is my road going to be repaved? We all have heard those stories. So council policy in prior years has established these mechanisms, these tools in the toolbox to help with long-term funding. So, you know, I don't know that it's going to be very fruitful to go through how does improvements need to be funded. They will be funded. Likely they'll be spread out through different areas and through different tools. But at the end of the day, the funding will still be required, and likely the residents will then incur that cost, whatever is not paid for by business.
Okay. It occurs to me that when we count on Caltrans to move these projects forward, it seems to take forever and ever. And it's not going to be a quick process. So it seems that there is a need for highway improvement, but I still don't feel that in this case and in the case of redeveloping existing buildings, that cost should be borne by the individual business owners. And the town has been very supportive of bond measures and things that or the area has been, of things that we've needed to, when we've presented bonds to the public for the water pipeline, for the sewer system, for the TOT tax. They've been supportive of those things, and it has allowed Yucca to grow in a way that was more of what we had envisioned. Without the public support in those areas, these big projects would never have happened.
We'll need to maybe we can bring it back to the item that we hand for the hearing.
Okay, so my point on this is I agree with alternative 2, where we bring it back to the planning commission with them considering the option of making redevelopment of existing buildings not subject to these fees for development of midline, highway improvements.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to make a couple comments. One, full disclosure, I like ice cream. I love ice cream. So the comments I make don't have anything really to do with that. We're talking about your property and the property vision. That's what I'm afraid of, so just understand it was a full disclosure. There was a lot of talk about old buildings and improvements in the community. I've owned commercial property in town over the years. I no longer own any, so I don't have a conflict there either, but I do understand the struggles of getting a new building to be in the vision that you'd like it to be, for not just you, to be successful, but for the community too, how it looks, their perception from the outside. I did like, I'm glad that Councilmember Abel brought it up. But one of the things that happens is the Planning Commission really follows the guidelines in our development code. That's their role, is to look at the development code and see how the project kind of meshes with that. And sometimes it's not a good fitting, or it may be a perfect fit, or it might not be enough. So that's just something that will always exist. One thing doesn't fit everything. But what we're looking at today, how I see it, is I really like the discussion. Merle already mentioned it, and DHS brought up requires offsite improvements if the existing improvements are not adequate for the proposed use. That's where the Planning Commission could really work too, is to see how that is going to affect our community in many ways, not just traffic. And then make sure that that's appropriate for what it is and what it wants to be, and not come in with just a hard line that there's no flexibility to move. And that's where we find ourselves today. I've gone to the property, I've walked the property and tried to make some determinations on it. I know the traffic flows very well. I'm the representative for our community on SBCTA, which is the transit authority, the one that's been mentioned a few times about highways and capacities and widening. And that's someone that we work with Caltrans to help that happen. It's a very difficult thing in a county as large as ours, as you can imagine. It's the largest county in the country. We cover a lot of turf. So it is something that we work on continuously, just to know that we are working on these plans to increase capacity or throughput or a better environment for our travelers to come through. That's already being done. It just takes a while. But I'll say that I appreciate you reaching out, taking it upon yourself to reach out to Ray Distel at District 8 for Caltrans. I have a meeting with them tomorrow on SBCTA. But my vision is that we allow some changes in our development code to look at items just like this. I do like of the options that were shown by Jared, developed by staff. I think the DHS was something that allows staff to have some movement in that area. This wasn't brought about for any other reason other than it's in our development code and it's what we follow today. In public hearings and times like this, we've used it before. We've come in and changed some of our policies that didn't fit our changing community. This is the process we go through, and I'm very proud of everyone being here this evening to participate in this. So it'd be my direction that I would select item number 2 on the agenda as a proposed for the hearing. And would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I just had a question for Mr. Stuckel. If we approve alternate recommendation number 2, how quickly can that come back to the Planning Commission for the applicant to be able to move forward on their project, and for future policy changes to maybe reflect more of what Desert Hot Springs perhaps has? That would be another process that would take longer?
Staff anticipates the Planning Commission would be able to make a recommendation to the council as well as act on revisions to the site plan review, which the council heard under appeal this evening at their meeting of October 10th.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I would move that we would approve alternative recommendation number 2.
Second that.
Motion and a second, roll call.
Council members Abel,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Dennison.
Yes, and thanks again, everyone, for joining us on this public hearing. This will close the public hearing. So we'll restart our meeting for the town council out of the public hearing, and we'll move on to department reports.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Your next item is fiscal year 2023-24 Public Safety Contract Mem. Is a really, really exciting item before the council. So with that, I am going to turn it over to the captain. Are we ready?
We are ready, yes.
Okay.
We have our K-9, not our K-9, a K-9
All right.
outside of council chambers, and this is going to be a good demonstration in what a patient breed a bloodhound is.
I've been
Because
waiting,
this-
yeah.
This K-9 has
Very
been
patient.
outside of council chambers since before we got going. Lieutenant Al Huff is going to do the presentation. He's done the heavy lifting. As you know, I've been here for a little over a year now, and I remember even being here as a sergeant 2014, 2015, thinking, how do we not have a tracking, trailing canine up here. I've talked to several people in this room as well as city council members over in 29 Palms, and this is a big need for the Morongo Basin. So now that I'm in a position to do a little bit something more about it, I got with Lieutenant Huff and asked him to do some work on this, and I can assure you he spent hundreds and hundreds of hours talking to breeders, to trainers, to canine handlers, writing policy, and then talking to both city staffs from 29 Palms and town staff here in Yucca Valley. So very excited. I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'll let him talk to you about what we're getting. And this is Deputy Hasso along with him. This is one of our canine handlers from the Sheriff's Department out of our Rancho Cucamonga station. And real quick, one last thing before I turn it over to the lieutenant. Traditionally, for the last several years, anytime we have a lost hiker or a missing child, somebody with developmental disabilities, Alzheimer's, dementia, you name it, they go wandering off in the desert. It can become very dangerous very quickly. And if Deputy Hasso or one of his couple of counterparts within the Sheriff's Department is working, best case scenario, it's drive time from Rancho Cucamonga before we can get started. So Lieutenant Huff, can you let them know where we're at and what they can be excited about here shortly?
There we go. All right, Mayor, Council, thank you for having us here today. Thanks for the intro, Captain. All right, so just a brief introduction, just kind of on this little project here that the captain and I have been arduously working at. So as we well know, in the Morongo Basin area, Joshua Tree area, we have over 3 million visitors that partake year-round in visiting the basin and all that stuff. And so this was part of the research that I did. I literally felt like I was back in school again, doing research papers again, just to prove the worth and the value of this asset to our bosses. And so I did some research back from 2018 on the number of, obviously before we had the little computer glitches. So that was the data that was available to us. In 2018, we had a little over 170 missing persons just in the Morongo Basin. That's a pretty significant number in a single year. Years preceding have actually increased more than that. The unfortunate thing about that is these missing persons range from toddlers to juveniles to elderly to persons with Alzheimer's, and to include a lot of the missing hikers. And so normally in occasions like this, the difference with the response time can make the difference between locating a missing person or recovering a missing person. And we would much rather locate the missing person than the aft. So we kind of resurrected this project that was introduced several years ago that was shut down. I did a bunch of research on this, and I think probably one of the biggest issues I had was that it was unequivocally going to financially impact the town. And I like moving money around and playing the shell game with money. And I brought my proposal over to the captain, and this proposal had minimal impact to the town, to the city of 29 Palms, and to the county as well. So what I did with this was, looking at our staffing, I utilized one of our county positions, and I restructured that position to be the canine handler. And so with that, we have basically what's considered an NCC, or net county cost. And basically what that is that canine handlers like Deputy Hasso here, they make a little more money than the average deputy sheriff, due to the tremendous commitment that they have with the canine, the call-outs, being on call. Deputy Hasso's all over this county. He is absolutely all over this county, responding to missing persons, to fleeing felons, whatever it may be. So we completely minimized the costs on this, utilized law enforcement supplemental funds to help fund this program. The captain and I, we battled with our headquarters. We lost a lot of teeth out of it. We just spit them out and kept on going. The captain said, hey, you know, I'm almost at the point to where we're just going to stop because we had so much resistance in this program. But I think my OCD kind of kicked in, and I said, hey, no, we're gonna ride this out. We're gonna keep on fighting with this because this is a critical resource that we need up in the Morongo Basin. Like the captain said, you know, response time can be anywhere from 2 to 3 hours from Rancho Cucamonga if they are even available. You know, because they're handling all the valley stations. A lot of times there's mutual aid calls where a bloodhound assistance is needed, and we just do not have that resource up here. And I can tell you over the last 2 weeks, we've had at least 10 incidents where we could have used the bloodhound on searches. You know what I mean? And now that we're bringing this program in, the deputies are being a little more cognizant on, because they know, unfortunately, this asset isn't readily available for us, even though it's much needed. But now the deputies are more cognizant of the use and how it's going to benefit the entire basin, having this resource. So finally, last Thursday, our chief called captain called me, blessed the program, and I had no response. I'm like, okay, let's do the dog. I was just too tired to respond in a joyful manner or anything like that. So we do have, the program has been approved. Curtis, thank you very much for you and Jordan's work on this. And, you know, without you, there's absolutely no way we could have done this. You know, they were pivotal and helping us see this vision. Not to mention with our search and rescue efforts and missing person efforts. Canine Kiva's already shown. She's already taken a bunch of pictures with people. Everybody goes up to her and pets her. She is an absolute great public relations tool. You know, absolutely, you know what I mean? So everybody's looking at her smiling. You can't look at her and get mad. It's kind of like cake, right? You can't get mad at cake. So, but that's what we're doing with that. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to hand it over to Deputy Hasse. He's going to talk a little bit about the actual program and what he does in Rancho, since we're going to be working tandem with their canines that they have down there. And then he's also going to show you a couple photos of, and maybe a video of, our canine Sadie that's out in Tallahassee, Florida. Come October 1st, we're going to be sending our deputy down there that we select. I will have a deputy selected tomorrow. I'm going through interview processes and complete, you know, vetting of the deputies and all that stuff. And by tomorrow, I'll have it down to 2 deputies. And by the end of the day, I will have our deputy selected, who's going to be our new Morongo Basin canine handler. And then we'll send them off to Tallahassee, get all trained up, and bring canine Sadie back. We may change the name because I just found out that we can change their names and they do respond. Change my name, I'm not going to answer. So, but that's what we're going to do. So, but it's Deputy Hasse right here for you.
No, that's fine. Or not?
While Deputy Hasso's getting set up, if I may, I just want to say the sheriff, the office of the sheriff, and his executive staff are very excited about the canine coming up to the Morongo Basin and adding that really to the fleet of the sheriff's department. When the lieutenant's talking about we hit a lot of resistance, when we work in a very unique area out here where we have a county operation and 2 contract cities. And when you try and have a resource that's shared between the 3, you can't just take a veterinary bill and cut it 3 ways, or a deputy's salary and cut it 3 ways. So a lot of it was just working that out, because in Rancho Cucamonga, the city of Rancho Cucamonga, if they want it enough, they pay for it. If they don't, they don't. Same with Victorville, some of the other places we have canines. So this is going to be, I believe, our first station within the sheriff's department that has county operations in 2 contract cities that has a canine. So don't want you to think that the sheriff himself is not supportive of this program. It just took a lot of maneuvering to get to where we're at. And also, as you notice in our selection, and Deputy Hasso might touch on this, Kiva is not wearing a muzzle. We specifically wanted a dog that we could take into our schools, that we could take to the Boys and Girls Club, to Little League games, to Miracle League games, to council meetings, to the library, you name it, because this is about as aggressive as I've seen Kiva. And I've seen Kiva out in 115 degrees when she's out looking for a hiker, so some of the other dogs that are used for other purposes, if we bring him or her into a room like this, it would have to be with a muzzle, and Kiva doesn't bite, and neither will Sadie.
Captain, if I might, I'd like to go ahead and just take care of the administrative part of this, and then the deputy can come back up. The recommendation for the council is going to be to approve the town's participation in the Morongo Basin Station Trailing Canine Program, approve an amendment to the Schedule A contract with San Bernardino County Sheriff. Interestingly, the way that we have this structured is essentially the county is going to be covering the staffing costs. City of 29 Palms is going to be covering the costs of the dog, initial costs, and then the town of Yucca Valley is going to be contributing funding for the canine vehicle as a deputy vehicle. So in essence, the entire cost at this point is going to be an increase of about $23,611 on our Schedule A, of which a good portion of that, if not all of it, will be attributable to LESA or grant funding, the local agency service account. And so we're very pleased with the way that this worked out. As the captain indicated in prior scenarios when this was being discussed, it was quite cost prohibitive for either one or even two, the city of 29 and Yucca to bear that cost completely. So we're thankful for the creativity of the captain and his and the lieutenant and ultimately for the sheriff to be able to participate in this as well. We think it's a great solution, and we know that that need is there. Captain, what's this dog's name?
This is Kiva.
Kiva. Got it.
So Kiva comes to us from the same breeder in Tallahassee, Florida. So when we were doing our research, there's law enforcement canine breeders all over the country. And when I talked about Lieutenant Huff getting in hundreds of hours of research, I'm not exaggerating, because a big part of these dogs is they have to pass certifications in order for you to keep them out in the field. And then it has to be a great breed, because the first time that the handler works the dog too hard, it can actually burn its nose, and it is no longer a law enforcement canine. So it's nice that Rancho Cucamonga did a lot of the work, and then Deputy Hasso, my understanding, beginning of October, when we're going to go pick up our canine, he will also be down in Tallahassee. He's going to a train the trainer course out there. So a lot of our ongoing training with our deputy and our new canine pup will be locally because of Deputy Hasso's expertise and what he learns in Tallahassee next month.
Yes. So my name is Gabriel Hasso. I've been a deputy with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department going on, actually just had 10 years this past month. So I've been a canine handler. It'll be 3 years in November. Kiva's actually my second hound. The first hound that I had, we had to retire her. She had some issues in big open spaces, just kind of like public areas. So we couldn't break her of that, and we ended up having to retire her, and that's why we ended up with Kiva here. So she is 2 years old. She actually just turned 2 on the 2nd. So I got her at 7 months from the breeder in Tallahassee. So her original name is Lola. The city of Rancho Cucamonga did not like the name of Lola, so they decided to go through the process of renaming her. So we ended up with Kiva. So I'm just going to kind of go over a brief overview of what our dogs do, how they work, just kind of the attributes of how they work. I apologize that my computer didn't work. But for kind of how Captain Warwick was saying, Rancho notoriously has been the holder of the canines for now going on 14 years. So Rancho kind of started the program. They saw a need for bloodhounds. At the time, we weren't doing any kind of pointy ear dogs, so the best thing that we could think of was a bloodhound. A lot of critical missings, a lot of suspects that ran from us, so something that we would call out other agencies that had bloodhounds, and we saw the success with those dogs, and that's how our program started. So kind of past and present of our dogs. This is actually Singe on the right is the one that actually got retired, and Nix is her sister, and she's currently in service right now. So they're actually on vacation right now. But Canine Dare, for all intents and purposes, she was our matriarch of our department. A very successful dog, over 250 fines, confirmed fines, in her 10 years as a canine with our department. I want to say the last fine that she actually had was out here in the Morongo Basin. She was flown out by 40 King and put to work, and she found, I believe it was a missing hiker that had fallen off of one of the rocks and was laying there. And Dare was able to find him, got him the medical need, and we were able to get him out. But Dare has now passed. She passed a year ago. She retired after 10 years with our department. She retired at 12 years old, or she retired at 10 years old, but she did 8 years in service, and she passed away. But Canine Deja was her sister. They both came to us from a breeder out of Camas, Washington, and that's where actually we got Singe and Nix. They were the nieces to both Dare and Deja, so it was the whole family line that we had with these dogs. We had one dog that was for our narcotics division and our gang team. So this is Canine Smokey. He just retired about a year and a half ago, but very successful dog in finding a lot of narcotics for our county. And this is Canine Nix. She's currently in service. That's her handler, Casey Allen. And she's currently on vacation right now. If not, she would have been here as well. And then this is Canine Singe, which was my other partner. I got to keep her, so she's at home. She's living the retired life, and she absolutely loves it. So, and then we have this little girl. She's very spunky. I tell her that she wants to be a shepherd because she runs around like she's a shepherd. But she is very good at what she does. In the year and a half that I've been running her, we've been able to locate now 18 people in the year and a half that we've been together. So, and those are our past and present canines. So we train a lot with surrounding agencies, like how Captain Mark was talking about, especially coming out to here, that elements is what's going to affect our dogs. So high heat, obviously if it's something critical, we want to deploy the dog on it. We're going to bring multiple dogs with us, and we train for that quite a bit. So we train with Riverside Sheriff's Department, Riverside PD, Hemet PD, Claremont, and now Pomona PD as well, and Arcadia and Laverne. So we have a very big training group, so at any given moment, we can have multiple dogs here to assist on any kind of critical incident that we need to deploy the dogs on. Not just from our county, but from surrounding agencies. So the functions, I'm always asked what's the difference between tracking and trailing. Our dogs do both. When you guys think of kind of a shepherd or a Belgian Malinois, if I were to give that dog the sniff of a bowl of chili, that dog would go find that bowl of chili. When we give our dogs a bowl of chili, we can give them different ingredients from that bowl of chili, and they'll go find just that one specific ingredient. So if we give them a kidney bean, they'll go find just that kidney bean. Whereas a Malinois, they're smelling the whole thing and they want the whole thing. They don't distinguish which one's which. So the difference between tracking and trailing, the best way that I can explain it is Tracking is going to be like ground disturbance. So when you're walking on dirt, that ground disturbance that you're creating, that's what a shepherd versus what a hound does, is they track the scent. They're trailing the scent. So that's the difference between the tracking and trailing. So the limitations that we have with these dogs, obviously, is going to be the weather. With any dog, especially even with humans, it's going to be the weather, right? Very hot. These conditions are very difficult for the dogs at times because it could be very dry. But the upside that you guys have out here that we don't have, let's say in Rancho Cucamonga, is that you guys don't have very many people walking through the same area as we do in Rancho Cucamonga. If somebody goes missing at Victoria Gardens Mall, we have tens of thousands of people there at any given moment. Out here, when somebody's on a trail, the dog will only be working through a handful of scents versus tens of thousands of people. Types of deployments that we work is going to be missing people, suspect searches. So when somebody runs from us, we can deploy the dog off of that, and evidence searches. So looking for guns, knives, murder weapons, whatever it may be that the suspect either dropped or tried to ditch during their track or trying to get away from us. Our dogs are very good. The scent items that we can use is, imagine anything that you touch, we can use as a scent item. Door handle, car seat, shift lever on a car, a pin, a water bottle, anything that you touch, it has your specific scent, and that's what our dogs are looking for. So they're very good at what they do. I don't know if this will play, but we'll try it. So this is in Lake Paris. Actually, Lake Hemet, I'm sorry. This is Caroline from Riverside Sheriff's Department. Obviously, we're not making it easy for her or the handler. For the dog, it's easy. For these dogs, it's not work for them. It's a game. So when they understand that it's a game for them, it becomes very easy to train a dog, to run a dog, because they don't care about what's going on around them. All they care about is they're going to get their treats at the end of this trail, and that's all I care about. It's natural instinct for them. They don't care about anything else. They just want to get that toy. They want to get that food. For the hounds, it's always food. I haven't met a hound that doesn't like food. They eat quite a bit, but they're very good at what they do because of the training that they get. Their training starts at 8 weeks. So as soon as they're taken from mom, most of the dogs that scent evidence trains are coming from Tennessee, and they are trained in Tallahassee. They start their training at 8 weeks. From about 8 weeks to about 16 weeks, all they do is environmental work with these dogs. Going to Costco, going to Home Depot, going to Bass Pro Shop, and just walking the dogs around, getting them used to people. Hounds in general it's a very skittish breed, so getting them exposed to different things is very imperative for these dogs. And he does a very good job. Singe, my other dog, would have been tail tucked in a corner, and she would have been in the corner not moving. She wasn't very acclimated as much as these dogs are. As you can tell, she doesn't care about anything around us, and she loves it. We train these dogs weekly, daily. I will often get calls from my wife if I'm at work and I didn't take the dog with me that day. You need to come pick this dog up and go run her and go do something because she's tearing up the yard. They're very high drive and they want to work, especially a working hound. And we try to throw as much training as we can at these dogs. Everything about these dogs is made for trailing. Everything is made to find people. They've been bred for this. Their long ears help sweep that scent forward if you guys get a chance, not so much right now because she just got a bath today, but if you guys get a chance to pet her, she's very oily. After you feel her, you feel your fingers, and your fingers get very oily and very sticky. That's part of their just natural attributes to help that scent stick to them. So when we give them that scent, that helps them. The best thing I can show you guys is everybody take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out. If you don't have any kind of sinus issues, for the most part, you breathe in with both nostrils, right? Unless you're a mouth breather and you breathe in with your mouth. For the most part, it's both nostrils, right? You can't really alternate one nostril from the other unless you plug your nose, right? With these dogs, they're able to alternate their noses. So they can alternate their nostrils, and that's how they know which way the scent is stronger for them. So that's kind of their directionals for them. And you'll hear it when she smells some food or something inside of like a room like this, you'll hear like a vacuuming sound, and that's her alternating that nose because she's trying to find out which way it's stronger for her because she wants it. And that nose, she has a bump on their head, and for the most part, you can kind of see it at the top of the picture there. All hounds, for the most part, have that bump on their back of their head, and that is their olfactory. It's their nose receptors. It's so big it pushes out the back of their head. So that's how. It's pretty impressive. I've seen these dogs work every day of my life, or the last 3 years, and I'm still amazed by these dogs of what they can do. And the future, the care. So we take care of these dogs. These dogs are with us 24/7. They're never away from us. We take care of all their cleaning, their feeding, their bathing. We have very specific guidelines for our veterinary visits. We have experts that take care of our dogs, and then also the supplements and the equipment that we need for these dogs. Unfortunately, they are hounds. She's considered what we call a dry mouth hound. So she isn't like the typical hound that you can imagine where it's just dripping, kind of if you guys saw the picture of Singe where it's just dripping drool. That's a typical hound. The dry mouth hounds are the more sought after ones because it's less to clean up, but she's sneaky because she just stores it in her cheeks and then she'll shake her head and it shoots off everywhere. So it's fun. I call it slobber patrol in my house because I have to walk around with either baby wipes or Clorox wipes and cleaning up the house because it's everywhere. And in retirement, these dogs get to retire with us. So once they've met their working life, we get to keep them and keep them as pets at our house. So the future of the Morongo Canine is here. This is Miss Sadie, which I'm sure her name is probably going to get changed. But Miss Sadie she's a piece of work. Paul has been sending me some videos of her as of recent trailing, and she's very good, very headstrong dog, very well trained. She is actually the first dog that's coming out of scent evidence that's going to have some type of obedience. If you guys have ever been around any hound, you tell them to come and they just kind of look at you and say, yeah, okay, and they go off on their way. So he's been working on obedience with them. If I would have gotten my computer to work, there's a video of her. She's very, very confident in who she is. She's standing on those pallets. Those pallets are about 4 feet high, and for about any dog, being that high off the ground, not being kind of secured, would be a little daunting. For her, she doesn't care. She sees those toys. If you guys can see on that right picture, there is a aluminum tray. He has that there so that it can create noise, kind of desensitizing the dog to any kind of loud bangs or anything that's going to affect the dog during trailing. He walks around, we'll hit that every once in a while. Dog will kind of get startled a little bit and then goes back to what it's doing. So, but hopefully this answers quite a bit of your guys' questions, or if you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
That is beautiful, beautiful program. Looks like they're well taken care of.
Yes.
They even have a retirement plan, so. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to have a question or anything for for the deputy and the canine. Very comfortable in people, you can see.
Yes.
When she just laid down and just going with the flow. Council members, any comments? It's wonderful.
No, just a beautiful dog. Thank you for demonstrating.
Yes, of course.
It'll be a great addition to the community.
Yes.
And great.
And I've selfishly have talked to Cap quite a bit. Selfishly, I want a dog out here because the drive out here at 3 o'clock in the morning is not the funnest. I will happily do it. I love coming out here, and I love helping you guys out. But yes, a dog out in this area is essential. With these dogs, a lot of the time that we deploy is a life or death situation. And if we're wasting time driving all the way out here, it makes more sense having a dog out here to help you guys and getting to that person a lot quicker. So
Question. Does humidity affect their ability to smell?
humidity actually helps.
Helps.
Yeah, so a lot, I think I've had this conversation a lot with Lieutenant Huff. Humidity actually helps, like the nice dewy mornings that we're having right now is the most beautiful trailing weather, just because the scent sticks. It doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't really move, it just stays in place. The environment in the desert is a very fun environment for these dogs, especially when the sun goes down, because that humidity comes out of the ground and it releases the scent for these dogs. So for a missing person or something like that, we would probably, if it's 105 degrees out, we'd probably wait till that sun goes down a little bit so that the humidity could start coming out of the ground and it releases the scent for these dogs. And they can run a lot longer than if we're deploying them in 105 degree weather.
I worked in a prison in South Florida that used hounds to get escapees, and they very effective.
Oh, yes. Especially in the south, because it's very, very, very humid.
It was humid, so I guess their smelling ability was really good.
Councilmember Abel?
Yeah, I understand the dog's purpose is for tracking. Is a cadaver dog a specifically used, a different dog used for identifying and finding buried bodies and so forth?
Yes. So cadaver dogs is a very different skill set that I would never want to get into. What I always thought was they used pseudo or fake scents. And when I got into canine handling, I learned that they actually carry around pieces of dead people with them for the dog to sniff and to train. Not something I would want to do on a daily.
When you said that the hound would be able to track an item perhaps from a suspect, is that because the scent on the gun, the scent on a knife, not looking for a gun, but looking for the scent and then picks up maybe evidence that there's a missing person and here's a shoe or an item that belongs to them?
Yes.
Okay.
So just a quick story about her. One of her last find was actually on this last Saturday night. City from inland called us from the valley. It said, hey, we have 2 people in custody. We had a shooting and one person's not doing well. They were both identified, but the gun's outstanding. So, okay, I can come out and I'll try to help you guys. She's not a gun dog, but she should be able to hit on some kind of item that the suspects left. Grabbed a scent item from one of the suspects and deployed her. She went straight to a beer can that was still in the middle of the street, still cold to the touch. And she continued trailing and she jumped on a trash can. We thought it was another suspect. When we opened the trash can, we found the firearm inside of the trash can. So it's impressive what these dogs can do. Anything that you touch, and obviously if it's in a contained spot, it's going to be bellowing out some scent for these dogs, and they should be going to it.
Very informative.
Councilmember School or anything?
I'm good, thanks.
Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. I love the new addition.
Yes.
No, it was just
Once we get Canine Sadie, also known as Canine Sadie out here, We will do a nice little introduction with her, our new handler, and let you all pet her. So the last thing I'd like to say in closing is financially, I believe we're doing everything right. You know, I presented that's my whole plan with the captain. Like I said, minimal financial expenditures with this to get an incredibly valuable resource. However, as soon as we get that one find, that canine is paid for itself over and over, whether it's a missing grandmother with Alzheimer's or a missing child, missing hiker, just that one search and that one located person is going to pay for itself right there. So, thank you.
Absolutely. I'm so proud of, Sheriff Dykes and what he's been able to do in partnership with his team everywhere, but always paying close attention to our communities and the Board of Supervisors for, backing him on all of that stuff that he's bringing forward. And I think we see a lot in the news, we hear a lot about, on the media, the importance that the tool of this could be. So thank you for your efforts very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So with that, we're going to go ahead and we'll look for an approval for the item.
I'll make a motion that we approve the town's participation and approve the amendment to our contract with the Sheriff's Department as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call.
Councilmember Zabel?
Yes.
Droz?
Yes.
Lombardo?
Yes.
Schooler?
Yes.
And Mayor Dennison?
Yes, thank you. So now we're finally getting on to item number 10, California Intergovernmental Risk Authority update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you this evening is to provide an update on the town's JPA, the California Intergovernmental Risk Authority. At this time, I'd like to invite, and she's already there, after petting that dog, I'm jealous. This is Amy Northam. She's the Deputy General Manager for CIRA, and she'll provide a report for you.
Do we want to call Ken at the end?
At the end.
I'm sorry?
At the end.
At the end? Okay, great. Hello, thank you. I'm not sure I want to follow up either ice cream or dogs, but here we go. Thank you. My name is Amy Northam. I'm the Deputy General Manager for CIRA. CIRA stands for the California Intergovernmental Risk Authority. And Deborah asked me to provide some specific updates for the council. So she asked for a quick update on the merger itself. So just as a reminder to the council and everyone in the room, CIRA is the result of a merger between two prior organizations, REMIF and PARSAC. So combined, CIRA now has 53 members. Our total payroll is just over $420 million. Our largest member, if you count by payroll, is the city of Watsonville. They have a payroll of approximately $42 million. And our smallest member is the city of Amador City with a annual payroll of $36,000. That's one part-time employee that works for the city of Amador City. Amador City also happens to be the smallest city within the state of California. On average, our payroll is $8.4 million. If you count, if you measure the size of the members by population, Rancho Cucamonga is our largest with approximately 200,000 residents. And the smallest is the city of Amador City with 190 residents. Approximately 70% of our members have public safety, so that's either going to be police or fire, or police and fire. So CIRA's philosophy is our board really works towards a greater good. The board is really interested in balancing individual interest with pool interest, so whether you're the largest member or the smallest member, all interests are taken into consideration. The board engages in very constructive discussion as well as embracing diverse opinions. The last one is probably the most important one of all. We highly encourage our members to participate, either by attending the board meetings, sitting on executive committee, or sitting on any various committees that we have put together. It's really important that we hear from our members. And the town of Yucca Valley is one of our members. We believe that we're member governed and member directed, so we look to the members for direction.
We recently did some strategic planning. As a new organization, we did not have a mission statement or a vision statement. So in May of '23, we put together a strategic planning session and came up with a mission statement. Our mission is, CIRA is a collaborative group of public agencies providing risk financing programs. We provide innovative and evolving risk management solutions. So there's essentially 3 pillars there. All 3 of them are at the core of what CIRA is. 1, we're a collaborative group of public agencies. 2, we provide risk financing programs. And 3, we provide innovative and evolving risk management solutions. Next was our vision statement, to be a recognized leader in providing public agency risk management solutions. Lastly, our board did give us a set of goals. These are 6 goals that we are to accomplish in the next 12 to 18 months. Our first goal is to right-size our staff. We right now have 7 staff members and 8 positions available. We have been given the direction to come up with a strategy towards program unification, and that really means doing away with those legacy pools, the legacy REMIF and the legacy PARSAC pools. We've also been directed to come up with a governance strategy. We've had some very robust conversations on what that looks like, and those conversations will continue in the next 12 months. The next item is assistance in high areas of risk, such as HR and cyber. We're working on upgrading our website, and there was a strong interest for some mental health and peer support, a master services agreement to provide mental health and peer support for our member employees. So let me introduce our team. Ken Ong is the general manager. We'll hear from him in just a moment. I am Amy Conley, or Amy Northam. I'm the deputy general manager. Next, we have Erike Young. Erike is our risk manager. Tracy Smith-Reed is our senior accountant. Then we have Thor Benzing as our risk control advisor. Our newest staff member is Alex Avila. She is our management analyst. And Carmela Beckman-Spector is our accounting specialist. She's a little photo shy right now. So an update on our membership. On July 1st of 2021, that was the date that CIRA was formed, we had 50 members. Today we have 53 members. So last program year, we withdrew 1 member, and we added 3 new fire agencies, as well as 1 new emergency communication center, a dispatch. The 3 fire agencies were from Northern California. The member that was withdrawn was from Southern California. And the emergency communication center, the dispatch center, is out of Southern California. So I was also asked to provide a quick update on industry trends. This is what we are seeing right now in the industry. There is a trend with insurance companies to take what is known as an ABC approach, and that stands for anywhere but California. So insurers are really leaving the state left and right. It leaves organizations like us with some real problems. The good news as far as liability insurance is it does look like the capacity is starting to increase. Now this is capacity for general liability program nationwide, not specific to public agencies. When we start to drill down to public agencies, which will happen closer to the renewals in the springtime, we don't anticipate this to be the case anymore. We have started to see pricing level. We hope that remains the case for public agencies, particularly when we do come up on renewal season. And when I say stabilizing, we're talking about a 20% increase versus a 30 or 40% increase. The next industry trend I wanted to update you on was the cyber trend. So good news on cyber, we have bad news on the general liability. I'll have even worse news when it comes to property, but on cyber, there is some good news on cyber. We've seen capacity increase and pricing decrease. So to use CIRA as an example, Last year, we had predicted that there would be an increase in our cyber coverage between 20 and 25%. We actually saw not only a flat renewal, our cost went down. So we paid less in cyber cost this year than we did last year. And we did have options to increase our coverage. We chose not to. We chose to keep coverage the same. And this is a perfect example of a quality risk management done by our members that is directly resulting in decreased costs. So because of the good work of all of our towns and cities, we are seeing a decrease in the cyber costs. We're seeing a decrease in cyber breaches. It's really good news all around with cyber, and hopefully that trend will continue. Lastly, I wanted to talk about property. Property is bad news all around. We've seen a decrease in a decrease in capacity, as I've already mentioned. We've seen a multitude of carriers leave the state. Coverage has gone down, retentions have gone up, and most importantly, pricing has gone up significantly. This information was published before the recent storm, the Hillary storm, as well as the storm that's out on the East Coast too. So we are looking at we will see some fairly significant property increases this year. If Mother Nature is kind to us with the wildfires, we may see it not as bad as we expect it. And the worst news probably is in the catastrophic lines of coverage, which we call a difference in condition. That's going to be your earthquake coverage or your flood coverage. Those increases are going to be substantial. Last year it was 40%. We expect it to be at least 40% again this year. So to step back again and focus on CIRA, Deborah asked me to provide some financial highlights of how we are doing financially. So we conduct 2 actuarial reports every year. One is a study that looks forward to determine how much funding we need to collect from our members. The second study is at the end of the year, we stop and we look backwards to see how we did that year and if we collected enough funds to pay for the claims. The good news is, as of June 30, our liability program is funded exactly where we want it to be. We're funded at about $13 million, or between 80 and 85%. That's exactly where we want to be. Unfortunately, we don't have such good news on workers' comp. As of June 30, workers' comp is not funded where we want it to be. We're funded at below expected, which is about 50%, and we are at a deficit as well. So we are, the board of directors, as well as the CIRA staff, is going to work very aggressively to change these numbers so we have better numbers next year. Wanted to also provide some challenges that we see in our industry. Risk assessment and risk pricing is one of the primary challenges. It's very important that we accurately assess and price the risks for the risks that the town is covered under CIRA. And capital adequacy is another big challenge. We want to make sure that we have collected enough funds from our members to pay for the claims. So keep in mind, we're not insurance. We are not an insurance company. We are a pool of all of our members' monies. So we have members up in Eureka, Arcata, we have Rancho Cucamonga, Amador City, the town of Yucca Valley. All of those funds get pooled together and put in one big pot to pay for claims. So it's critical that we have enough money, that we have collected enough funding from our members to pay for claims, so that when the town of Yucca Valley has an incident in the future, they can turn to CIRA and we will have adequate funds to pay for those claims. And lastly, some of the successes in our industry is member satisfaction and member retention. You can really look at a pool and see if their members are satisfied, if they are where they started, if they have not left the pool, if they continue to be with the pool. Not only have we kept all of our members, we did escort one member out the door, but that was on CIRA's call, not the member's call. We have added members, so we're very happy with our retention at this point and our growth as well. And lastly, one of our great successes is our effective risk management. We have a very strong but small risk management department. It's 2 individuals. Both of them used to work for Google. So they have global risk management experience, and they have provided some very innovative risk management solutions for our members, particularly coming from such a small organization. They have just provided an enormous amount of both breadth and depth to our risk management program. So with that, what questions do you have for me?
Well, thank you, Amy, very much. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment or a question online? So nothing, we'll bring it back to the council. Yes, go ahead, Pro Tem.
The pool of money that is collected from the various members, is it invested while you're waiting to disperse it? And how do you decide how to invest that?
Great question. So yes, those funds are invested, and we actually use the investment money from those funds. We count that as a reduction in the member contributions. So the way we determine what investments we choose to invest the money in actually comes from the board of directors. So we put together some recommendations for the board. The board takes those into consideration. And every year we look at the investment policy to see if it's still up to date. Are there changes that want to be made? There are some organizations like ours that may want to put social restrictions on the investments that are made. Some don't. So we give the board of directors opportunity every year to take a look at the investment policy and see if it makes still the most sense for the organization.
Has the board been making successful decisions over the last 2 years?
Absolutely, yes. So right now, our investment strategy is very strong. The board of directors will take a look at the policy in December. We have a lot of money right now invested in more of the local pot of money instead of in bonds and whatnot, because the rates are so high right now. They're making over 5% right now.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're very, very conservative. We want to make sure that we have security and liquidity are two important pieces, because we need security in the monies as public funds, and then we need liquidity in the funds as well. In case there needs a claim to be paid, we can pull money from it and to pay those claims.
Very good. So it is public money because it's coming from your members.
It absolutely
which
is
are
public
public
funds.
entities.
Yep. So I'm a public employee, just like Deborah
Okay.
and Curtis. I am a public employee as well.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions from the council?
I'm good.
All right, well, thank you, Amy. I appreciate you joining us tonight and waiting it out. We had some long agenda items today.
Absolutely, thank you.
You learned a little bit more about our town.
Yeah,
So much, Amy, for making the trip down. We really appreciate it.
absolutely.
So we have one other item related to Sarah. We have the current general manager, Ken Ong, online. He will be retiring at the end of this year, so we wanted to send him a little well wish. So
Hello, Ken. Can you hear me? This is Mayor Rick Dennison.
Yes, Mayor, I can hear you.
Awesome. I see you there. I just wanted to say that the council would like to thank you, Ken Young, for his 33 years as a valuable and dedicated employee of CIRA and PARSAC. He's contributed significantly to the success of CIRA and PARSAC, demonstrating an exceptional depth of knowledge and expertise throughout his tenure. He has conservatively advised the board for decades, putting them in an excellent position as a result of his sound advice. He has consistently demonstrated the importance of service to members and is known for his proactive approach to pooling that focuses on prevention, service, and efficiency. Most recently, he collaboratively completed a pool merger of a type virtually unknown in decades. The town of Yucca Valley would like to extend a heartfelt congratulations and best wishes to Ken on the occasion of his retirement. We recognize the achievements and contributions he has made during the course of his employment. Thank you, Ken. I mean, very, very nice. We're very happy so far with what we've done 2 years ago, starting to become a member of and to reduce our risk. We have a plaque, a certificate of appreciation. I just want to say real quick, it's to award Ken Ong in recognition of your exceptional service to the town of Yucca Valley for over 30 years with sincere appreciation for your dedication, commitment, and professionalism. The Yucca Valley Town Council thanks you and offers you all the best in your retirement. Presented this 5th day of September 2023. So thank you so much for everything.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and members of the Town Council. I appreciate the kind words. Yucca Valley, I believe, joined what was known as PARSAC back in 1992, and it's been an honor and privilege to serve the community and the town over the past 30 years. Curtis and Deborah have done an excellent job in managing risk within the community, which has made my life much easier. As I will be departing, you're in very capable hands under Amy's leadership. She will be appointed the general manager, I believe, next month, and she's very capable, and you will not be disappointed in her leadership. So thank you, everyone, and I wish you guys all the best.
Very good.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Ken.
Congratulations on your retirement.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Well, moving along, we have a few more items. Does anybody need a break? I don't want anyone to be wiggling too much, so we'll keep moving through. Item number 11, professional services agreement for communication services with Tripepi Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This next item is for the approval of the agreement for communication services with Tripepi Smith. As you recall, the Town Council approved the original agreement in September 2021. Since that time, Tripepi Smith team has acted as an extension of town staff to provide information outreach to our residents and businesses. The Tripepi Smith team has been a pleasure to work with, guiding myself and other town staff through a comprehensive communication plan and dissemination process to best represent the town organization. Most recently, the team was instrumental in crisis communication outreach around the Hurricane Hillary event. If approved, the agreement will be accommodated in the town's approved 2023-24 general fund budget, Measure Y and Measure Z budgets as well. And for future, it would be included for approval in future budget preparations. So this evening, we have Tripepi Smith Director Cameron Grimm and Business Analyst Skylar Addison to provide an overview of the services provided for the town this past year. Welcome.
I think we told Cameron and Skylar that they would be on at around 7:15 or so, so cut them a little bit of slack if their meeting goes a little bit short. But thank you for your patience tonight. This is one of our longer meetings.
No problem. We're lucky tonight. Good evening, Mayor Dennison and Town Council. Thank you for your time tonight. Like Leslie said, I'm Cameron Grimm. I'm a director at Tripepi Smith, and this is my colleague, Skylar Addison. She works closely with staff day to day on the work that we're going to present. We're going to do a quick, very brief overview of some of the highlights of our communication efforts and successes over the past year. So we're going to cover the time from our last presentation, which we did via Zoom in October of last year up through August of 2023. So the first item I'll cover is our e-newsletter, the digital newsletter, the community update. The last edition we did, you'll see on the screen, is our August edition of the newsletter. It covered such topics as the Essig Park update, aftermath of Hillary, and a 1383 update. We promote signups for the newsletter through social media. We included in the rec guide. We're constantly asking people to sign up so that they can stay informed through this newsletter and through other communications that we send. Another part of our scope of work is website content updates. So that can be everything from just regular routine maintenance to page builds. One of our most recent projects was the Essig Park Improvement Project's webpage, where we listed all of the milestones for the project and ways for community to be involved and provide their feedback and input. We do things such as update the slider, as you'll see in the top left, and we update the calendar, as well as we created a page that shows the contact information for external representatives. as you well know, we currently had some crisis communications needed. Leading up to Hillary and throughout the course of the storm, we published 10 posts across 4 platforms. We got a huge response on that. We had 86,000 impressions, 10,000 engagements. We gained 271 followers. And residents were very appreciative of what we were posting. One Facebook post itself was reshared over 200 times. We also do graphic design. This is another part of our scope. So you'll see here a mailer we recently sent, which has the different town resources and things that we just thought residents should be aware of so they could have that contact information. And we also did the art tour ads, as well as an upcoming insert in the rec guide that shows residents how to follow us on social, as well as sign up for the newsletter.
And every week we create up to 7 unique social media posts and disseminate those across 4 different platforms. And we gather content for these posts during our bi-weekly meetings with town staff, as well as from town council meetings. And we also work closely with town staff to get original media content that involves different town events or initiatives that are important to the community, as they help really intrigue residents more closely about what's going on. So I'll walk through a couple of highlights of our top posts from the last year across 4 different platforms. The first being Instagram. As a primarily media-based platform, reels or videos perform particularly well, and interesting photos on here. So we're always trying to gather some unique content. I was taking photos of the canine dog earlier, just thinking about social media. So on the left here, you can see the public safety initiative, Operation Dust Devil, that garnered a lot of interest from residents, and they all really liked these photos. And then on the right here, that might be familiar to you all, the ribbon cutting from Onaga and Little League video that also performed particularly well. And on Facebook and Instagram, we also have the capability to boost posts with paid advertising. So we'll routinely leverage that resource in order to help make residents know about important outreach initiatives, such as workshops or soliciting information from residents or feedback on projects such as Essex Park here, as well as supporting town recruiting efforts such as this hiring post on the right, which also tends to perform very well organically as residents routinely reshare those to their own feeds as well. And then lastly here, we have some snapshots from Twitter or X and then Nextdoor. On Twitter specifically, timely event notifications tend to perform the best as residents will go to that platform to learn more within a crisis, such as during the hurricane, or just to see what any upcoming events the town is putting on. And then on the right, we're a bit more selective with Nextdoor in terms of what we push out on there, as that platform allows us to directly email residents with every post that we push out. So we tried to curate that content a little closer to really important initiatives for the town and council. And then lastly here, we also do up to 2 press releases and articles every month that help do a deeper dive on important town initiatives and projects and what have you. So some recent topics that we wrote about include Essex Park improvements, content for the activities and events guide, about Prop 68, a highlight of the Youth Commission, a highlight of town services and other public safety initiatives as well. And we also routinely send out press releases that the town has drafted through Constant Contact every week. And those go to a curated media list as well as to our general contact list of residents, which is routinely updated, as well as to town staff. And here we just have a highlight of a press release that we wrote and sent out on behalf of the town that was featured in the LA Times last year.
So that's kind of the major content that we created over the past year, so we'll quickly just go over some of the ways we've been distributing that content. One of our most powerful tools for reaching residents is through emails. We do this through our Constant Contact email platform. So we send about 8 emails a month. We have a 40% average open rate, which is higher than the industry average of 37%. So we have a really engaged list. And we, like Skylar said, we constantly are updating the list, promoting the list, and making sure that everyone is informed on town initiatives and what's going on.
And another strong tool set that we have is our social media audience that we touched on earlier. And so as you can see here, Facebook, we have the largest following on that platform at about 7,000 followers, followed closely by Nextdoor, and then Instagram and X or Twitter. And most notably, you'll see that the Facebook percentage has increased a ton since last year. And that's also due in part to the town initiating a quarterly followers campaign where we have a $100 ad spend that we originally allocated just to Facebook, but now we've started expanding that to split it between Facebook and Instagram. And so that way we're targeting Yucca Valley residents who aren't already following the town, and that way we're just continuing to grow out our organic audience across all of these platforms. And we also create a monthly dashboard report, which is one of our most effective tools for measuring how successful our content is and helping us curate and further tailor content for different platforms based off of what audiences we have across each one. And so some of the key metrics that we track every month include net audience growth, the number of published posts that we send out a month, the number of impressions, which refers to the amount of times one of our posts goes up on someone's screen, and then engagements, which refers to how many times a resident interacts with our content, which is likely one of the most important metrics as it tracks comments, likes, link clicks back to the town's website, and so on. And right here, you can see this is a snapshot from the month of August, and so we were up across all boards just because of our storm communications and the efficacy of reaching residents on that topic. And then finally, within the dashboard reports as well, we track by each platform. And so this is a snapshot of Facebook and one of the few graphs that are presented alongside all of the metrics. And it's nice too because you can see direct spikes on the days here that correlate with how many people are going to our profiles or interacting with our content, which really helps us better analyze what performed well and try to take those trends and strategize for the future to make sure more residents are being engaged and informed by the town's messaging.
You'll see here just a sampling of some of the comments we've received on our different social media posts, just reflecting on the importance of having a baseline foundation audience that knows that we put out trustworthy information, we put out timely information so that when things like a Hillary or some other kind of vital event happen, that they know where to turn for that information and that we will be there to provide it for them. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to work with the Yucca Valley staff since 2021. Skylar and I really enjoy working with town staff on the different initiatives and projects that they're looking for communication and outreach with, and we're looking to continue that into the future. So we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Cameron and Skylar. Town Council, the recommendation before you is to approve a multi-year professional services agreement with Tripepi Smith for general and special communication services through June 30th, 2026. That concludes the staff report. We'd be happy to answer any questions following public comment.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Cameron and Skylar, and for your patience this evening. We lost most of our audience, but if there's anyone out there that has a question, now's your time. And then online, probably went to sleep. So I'll bring it back to council. I'd like to start. I follow a lot, and I really like the exposure that we receive. And I like that it's themed. I think we talked about that originally, so you can quickly just see a post and you know what it is involving. It's us. So the town and as a whole, but it's much broader than that, kind of brings in the community. I had an issue just a few months back that you were able to get right on board, get the message out, get it cleaned up, and get the discussion back on track. And I think your responsiveness on that, which was within 24 hours, there were posts and broadcasts from staff putting together some factual points, and everyone worked together as such a great team that I'm very thankful. Because sometimes the public may just get some information that may not be quite accurate. And our job, I think, through our social media presence is really to just get the facts out there. And we really can't control a lot of the situations, certainly like Hillary, but we can be planning for it here And people in the community know that. And they they take it very seriously. And there was evidence that we really didn't have any catastrophic issues within our town. I think it was because of the broadcast of what was happening and the community taking heed of those broadcasts. They see it as value now. So, and I do too, so thanks. Council, anyone else?
No, it's great to see the social media. It's also good to see exactly the feedback on how effective it is and that we're growing our followers, I guess, and so forth. It's also, even if they don't open it up or engage, they see the number of impressions and they know the town's working. So it's constant reminder to the residents that the town of Yucca Valley is out communicating and working, whether they read the details all the time or not. You might not actually know, but it is good to see that we're getting a return on our investment. And I thank you for your hard work. Everything I see come out looks really professional, so thank you.
I have no comment, but I do see that you're on Nextdoor a lot also, so that's really good. Thank you.
Well, I agree that the relationship with Trip Smith has been very beneficial to the town. You guys are great and very responsive, very consistent. The reach, the saturation, the responsiveness has been very professional. And I can think back to prior to the Trip Smith relationship, you know, the struggles that we had to have those qualities and to maintain that. So appreciate the effort that you do and the responsiveness and the whatever hoops we throw at you that you manage to make it work. So very beneficial relationship.
I also agree. It's wonderful to see the relationship develop the way it has, and I think that one of the goals of the town council is to keep the public informed, and you're doing an awesome job of that and getting them involved, and I really like that. Keep it up.
So thank you. And one more thing is, I really like your dashboard. That was the thing that I was pushing all the numbers around and figuring out how things were moving, and that's what we want is, you know, movement in there. So with that, on item number 11, I'd like to make the recommendation that the town council approve a multi-year professional services agreement with Trip Smith for general and special communication services through June 30th, 2026.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Councilmember Zabel?
Yes.
Droz?
Yes.
Lombardo?
Yes.
Schooler?
Yes.
And Mayor Dennison.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
On to item number 12.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This item before you is a contract between the town of Yucca Valley and the county of San Bernardino for the receipt of and participation of county funds in the amount of $998,000, almost $1 million towards the town's senior center modernization project. You recollect that the town's senior center modernization project has been an established town council priority for a number of years. The senior center serves as the primary location for the town's senior activities, including community meals, enrichment classes, pandemic resources, fitness classes, and various other activities. If you've been over there anytime lately, you know that it is in need of modernization, both to the multipurpose room areas, the lobby spaces, ADA access, the restrooms particularly are in need of some improvements. So our Phase 1 project is identified as about a $3 million project and would primarily focus on those areas of high need. Town staff reached out a number of months ago to 3rd District Supervisor and Board Chair Don Rao to inquire about the possibility of obtaining county funding assistance through American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funding. Supervisor Rao, who has been in that facility many times, understood the importance of this facility in meeting the critical needs of seniors and the broader community, took immediate interest in the project, and directed staff to touch base with county staff, the appropriate county staff, to follow the established rules and regulations related to ARPA funding. Over the past 6 weeks or so, town staff and county staff have worked through those processes, resulting in this agreement before the council this evening. If approved, we would be committing to receiving those funds, combining them with other town funds for the project, which you have available through any combination of town fund, general fund reserves, capital project reserves, or your 2022 financing. And delivering the project, we need to be out to bid and under contract by October of 2024 for this project. So it's going to move relatively quickly. This is just the implementation of the grant agreement. We would come back at some point in the near future with a project budget agreement showing you exactly where those funding sources are coming from. That concludes town staff report on this item. Be happy to answer questions after public comment.
Thank you very much, staff. Anyone in the public for comment? Nothing in the audience, online, nothing. Bring it back to council for discussion.
I'll move the item.
All right, we have someone moved. I'd just like to say also thank you for our county partners and for making this opportunity possible. We do love our senior center, and it is greatly used. So we have a motion,
Second.
and we have a second. Roll call, a motion by Schooler, second by Lombardo.
Councilmember Sable?
I would like to thank town staff for reaching out to the supervisor and for the response of the county, so that's
Yes, third
wonderful.
district supervisor, board chair Rao was very instrumental in providing our access to the program and then directing us in that way. So we're very grateful for those funds.
Yes.
Councilmember Droz?
Yes.
Councilmember Lombardo, Mayor Pro Tem Lombardo, Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Dennison.
Yes. So back to staff on item 13, cost recovery policy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for a brief PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'll be doing a brief review of the proposed cost recovery policy. Just as a little background, this policy is part of a broader implementation plan to review and update the town's current user fee schedule. The adoption of this policy will provide clear direction of the town's cost recovery in regards to user fees and will help set the framework for the adoption of the comprehensive user fee schedule in the near future. So moving forward to just some details on the policy itself. The purpose of this policy is identified here as the language in the document, but in simpler terms, it's to identify factors that will help to identify a range of cost recovery levels for the town's different fee types. So there's a process that we'll be able to use to go through that. First, we'll use that document that will provide guidelines for setting fees, given the full cost of service via cost recovery factors. It'll then establish conditions favoring low, mid, and full cost recovery, and then it will document cost recovery levels by fee within each department. So those cost recovery factors are identified here. I'll just briefly explain each of them for you. The community-wide versus special benefits that will show each fee that is being analyzed between if it will benefit the community or an individual level. So general fund revenues, as the town council is aware, is historically used for community services, whereas user fees are usually for a special benefit to an individual user. The service recipient versus service driver. Many user fees are for a service requested of the town, making the user a service driver rather than a receiver. So that usually indicates that the application of cost recovery should be higher rather than lower. The effects of pricing on the demand for services. Higher levels of cost recovery may negatively impact participation for certain services. So you would want to make sure that we are reviewing different pricing and see how that affects the services on cost recovery levels. Feasibility and collection of recovery is fairly straightforward. Feasibility indicates that there may be fees impractical to fully recover costs from. And then lastly, consistency with town policies and objectives. Overall alignment with townwide policies and strategic plans is, of course, an important factor to consider. So there's 3 overall arching goals that all work together for this policy. One is to maintain a sustainable budget, first and foremost, and then also coinciding with that is to benefit the overall community and respond to the interests of different user groups. This policy will be adopted by council hopefully this evening, and then the next step will be to move forward with a public hearing for a final adoption of the comprehensive user fee schedule. If council remembers, the last time that was updated was 2004, so we would be doing a full overhaul of that schedule as we reviewed a few months ago. on those new fees and using this policy to guide different cost recovery levels if full cost recovery is not chosen for different fees. So with that, the recommendation is simply to adopt the cost recovery policy, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate the update. Any public comment online? None? Back to council for comments? Seeing none, this is nice. We need to move on with the update of the policy for sure, so I appreciate your efforts in this. So with that, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we review and approve the cost recovery policy.
I'll second.
Council members Abel,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Dennison.
Yes. Our last item of the evening is item number 14, to approve LS1 Option E agreement with Southern California Edison to replace our high-pressure sodium vapor streetlights with LED streetlights town-wide. Staff?
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. The item before you tonight, the recommendation for the item before you tonight is that the Town Council approve an LS1 Option E authorization with Southern California Edison to replace high-pressure sodium vapor bulbs, streetlights with light-emitting diode or LED bulbs for streetlights, and authorize the city manager or his designee to sign the authorization letter. The town have a total of 269 Southern California Edison lights that varies in power. We have 60 lights at 70 watts. We have 100 lights at 100 watts and 81 lights at 150 watts. So executing the authorization will allow Southern California Edison to replace all HPSV lights with LED lights and like for like. And the total cost to upgrade the 269 is approximately $100,000, which will be paid back to SCE in 20 years with a 0% interest. What they will do is they will adjust the rate that we pay for these lights so it can pay for these upgrades. After the complete implementation of the project, the town will save approximately $16,170 in energy charges per year. If approved, the project is accepted to be completed in 5 to 6 months. We are planning to sit down and have a meeting with Edison so we can talk about the brightness, because LED lights is a little brighter than the normal light that we have right now. So because of the night skies and all of that ordinance that we have, we are planning to sit down, meet with them to talk about the shades, talk about the power and everything like that, so we can make sure that we are getting the right product. So the recommendation before you tonight is to approve an LS1 Option E authorization with Southern California Edison to replace high-pressure sodium vapor streetlights with light-emitting diode streetlights, and authorize the town manager or his designee to sign the authorization letter that is for the project. That concludes staff report. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions after comments.
Thank you for that update on item. Any public comment? None online, seeing none here. Back to council for comments or questions.
I'm glad you mentioned the night sky ordinance and making sure that we're staying within that, and anything we can do to help mitigate light pollution. I still think there's probably a lot of signage in town that violates our night sky ordinance, so if we can do something to make sure our streetlights are compliant and they're at the proper temperature or whatever, that'd be wonderful.
And I just want to mention how nicely this goes along with the street sign replacement.
Yes.
So that's really good that we're doing it at the same time.
Yes, that's correct.
It's always nice when you can save $323,000 through just the recovery mechanism, and I think it was like $424,000 in savings to Yucca Valley.
Yes.
Over a
20
20-year
years.
period. It's amazing. Nice job.
Well, this was something that I would just want to say was started by some comments from the community. And the town understands that we have a lot of old systems here, outdated. Some of it is probably 40, 50 years old is our street lighting system. And working with Southern California Edison staff had the opportunity to come to an agreement, and we're able to move forward on this, and it will be beneficial to the community for years to come and hopefully improve our night sky situation that in areas is deteriorating. So I'm very excited about this, and that the timeline is very agreeable. That seems fairly good for Edison on so many lights and fixtures.
And we will be working with our contract that we just approved, so we can have that in the social media about the project win and everything like that. So we can if there is any comments, we can receive the comments and see if we can work with the community too.
Awesome, perfect opportunity to show that this, like I said, started from the community, and we appreciate their involvement in our town. With that, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve item 14 as recommended, approve the LS1 option E authorization with SCE to replace our high-pressure sodium vapor lights with LEDs, and authorize the town manager or his designee to sign the authorization.
I'll second.
And the second from Schooler.
Councilmember Zabel.
Yes.
Droz.
Yes.
Lombardo.
Yes.
Schooler.
Yes.
And Mayor Dennison.
Yes. Last one are future agenda items from council.
Yes, Mayor, I had one. The council had received a letter from a person that, owners of the Desert Nest who've held several night markets in the past. So I'll let you read that on your own. They were going to make a public comment tonight, but I know there's under the weather and they had to go home and couldn't stay. But a future agenda item might be a policy on public events, town-sponsored, as well as non-town-sponsored events, such as farmers markets, holiday bazaars, festivals, and so forth. There's other gatherings that are going on around our community, and it would be great if we would consider possible policies where we could also have farmers markets and things like that. So I don't believe we have one currently. And like I said, the Desert Nest has hosted several night markets in the past, and they've been very successful. And the vendors had to have seller's permits and do it right, at least do it to where it's a high quality type of an event. So I'd like to see possibly us look at possible events in the future.
I would join you in that, having that placed as a future agenda item. I think it's time for discussion on it.
I agree.
All right, staff? All right, that's good. Anything else? We'll move on to public comments. I don't see anyone in the audience. Anyone have public comments online? All right, excellent. We'll move by that and bring it back to staff reports.
If any of the other staff have anything, they can jump in. I would just keep my comments brief this evening and commend the community on their response and preparation for the tropical storm. We were fortunate here in Yucca Valley that it didn't quite impact us as broadly as they initially thought it might. But shout outs to Jessica Rice, who is our emergency operations coordinator, as well as Trepepi Smith. They were available Saturday, Sunday, anytime. Were able to respond immediately and help us get that word out. At the fear or maybe at the risk of over-preparing, which I don't know that you can really do too often, the community responded well. We got some feedback on things that we could do better, and we take lessons from that, and we appreciate that feedback. But all in all, the cleanup is going well, and we were fortunate that it was probably similar to a moderate or severe winter storm. But again, thanks to the community for paying attention and preparing. Staff, anyone else have anything to add tonight?
Special Planning Commission meeting, September 19th. 2 items, branding mascots and special events in residential zones. Commission will discuss those, provide direction to staff, and then they will be holding a public hearing for both of those items on October 24th. So again, first special meeting, September 19th, branding mascots and special events in residential zones.
Important items for our community. Thank you. Anything else? Moving on now, back to mayor and council members, so Merle Abel. Trillis?
Just want to say it's great to see so much input again. So we've had that a few times lately, so it's pretty nice to see. Anyway, and I'm glad we got through the rain okay. And everyone, have a great evening.
Member Schooler?
Nothing.
And Pro Tem?
Nothing.
All right, I just want to thank everyone for hanging with us all night, so it was a good meeting. I appreciate all the progress we've made today. Our next upcoming meeting will be September 19th, and that meeting has been canceled due to a lack of a quorum, so our next regular meeting for the town of Yucca Valley will be Tuesday, October 3rd at 6 p.m. right here in the Yucca Valley Community Room. This meeting is adjourned.
Okay.